All right, good evening. It is 5:33 and we're going to call the City Council work session to order. I'd like to call on Evan from Interim Planning Manager and Housing Planner to present our topic.
And Mayor and Council, if you'll give me a little grace, I wanted to introduce Evan in his new role. So Evan is serving as our acting planning manager. He assumed that role in late January, is that right? Is doing that role as well as our associate housing planner. He's doing an excellent job. He's really helped lead our team through some transitions recently, so we're thrilled to have him in that role. So I just wanted to share that with you that had happened, and with that.
Congratulations.
Thanks. All right, thank you, Heather. So for the work session tonight on the construction excise tax, we are hoping to have a work session that can lead to direction from City Council on the implementation of a process to where we can release CET funds for eligible projects and programs. So again, my name is Evan Hippis. I'm the acting planning manager and housing planner for the city. And then we also have our community development director, Heather Richards, and proposing to break it into 4 different sections tonight on some different topics with opportunities for questions and discussion kind of as we go. So looking at that, starting with some information that Heather's going to present on existing affordable housing reductions, then moving into some background and the purpose on the construction excise tax program, then looking at the proposed process for awarding funds as recommended by the Affordable Housing Committee, and then focusing on some key discussion points that staff's identified to try to get some clarity on so that we can hopefully move forward with implementation. So starting with the existing affordable housing reductions, if Heather, you want to present those.
Yeah, so City Council, I just wanted to share with you the construction excise tax program that we're going to be talking about is a resource that we can bring to the table. Prior to that, the city's worked hard at helping affordable housing projects by coming up with ways where we can reduce costs within the programs that we have that serve affordable housing. So over the years, the city has worked through that discussion, has come up with several different incentive programs that are now looked around the state as the norm, but when the city launched into them, it was long before the norm, so to speak. So one is system development charge exemptions. Currently, we exempt wastewater and transportation system development charges. Parks SDCs still apply. We also provide a 50% reduction in permit review fees for engineering and planning. We do the same for building, but we cap that at $75,000 due to the fact that it operates as an enterprise fund. We do that for qualifying housing projects. So any housing project that is 80% serving households of 80% area median income or less and homeless shelters. The housing units need to be retained for affordable housing for 10 years. And if they're not, they have to repay the value of the exemptions and the permit fee reductions. We calculate those and then we record them as a certificate exemption on the property itself. So we've had a couple of properties go through transactions since we started doing this program in 2017, excuse me, and they have both gone into qualified affordable housing units moving forward with the transaction, so there wasn't repayment in that regard. I feel like I'm operating. So to give you some history on this, historically, in the McMinnville Municipal Code, we did provide exemptions, 100% exemption for housing for low-income or elderly persons, which is exempt from real property taxes under state law. So that had been in the code for a couple of decades, and it was typically multifamily rental projects that were receiving those credits. June 14th, 1991, there was a memo from the city manager to city staff saying provide a 60% reduction in building permits, plan review, plumbing, mechanical sewer connection, and sewer and park SDCs for Habitat for Humanity projects. So that's when we started talking about how do we bring other things to the table as well in terms of what the city can do. In 2003, we adopted a resolution that provided a 50% reduction in planning fees for low-income housing, but we didn't define what low-income housing was. And then from 1996 to 2016, there were 36 projects that participated in this program as described here, this historical program. In April 16th of 2016, the City Council passed Resolution Number 26-20. What that did was it appointed an Affordable Housing Task Force, and it also adopted an action plan. The first item on that action plan was to sort of memorialize this practice and talk about how it's applied. Is it applied equitably, and how do we want to move forward as a city? So it was memorialize the system development charge discounts that we were doing for affordable housing projects. And the issue at that time was, how does the city craft a development fee incentive program for affordable housing that is meaningful, that's easy to administer, and does not unduly impact program delivery and delay future capital improvement projects? So we've had this sort of ad hoc historical practice, and in 2016, we visited with City Council for over about 6 months, back and forth, talking about how do we sort of put that ad hoc package together for an entirety. So like I said, from that time period, we then decided to exempt all SDCs originally in 2016, and had a reevaluation of that in 2018 when we recognized that we needed more parks SDCs, and there were impact to the parks by exempting them. So we added back parks SDCs as not being exempted. So those were moved forward as being charged. And then we added to the qualifying projects, we added mixed use with qualifying units that are proportional. So there was always this assumption that the nonprofit housing providers would get these incentives and exemptions, but the discussion at City Council in 2016 was, regardless of who's building the product, we're really interested in who's using the product. So who's the household that's in there? We're trying to provide affordable housing for the end outcome. And so we wanted to remove the sort of just for nonprofits, and for whoever was building, if they were building for affordable housing and could prove it and keep it that way, that these applied to them. We also had that discussion about how does the permit fees being reduced by 50% impact the different funds in terms of planning and now engineering and building. And building does operate as its own fund, so building fees collected are meant to pay for the building program. It is 100% fee supported, and it was at that time as well. And so the City Council, as a policy decision, decided to cap the annual amount that's discounted in the building fund at $75,000. And that moves forward today. And then we had that discussion of recording the certificate of exemption on the property. The reason why we wanted to bring this to you is these are elements that the city has provided in terms of reductions for affordable housing projects. It's fees that are collected to support programs, and the city has made a policy decision to forego those fees on qualifying affordable housing projects or reduce them. And now we're going to talk to you about a resource item, so where we can bring funds to the table as well, and how those interact with these exemptions.
So if there were any questions on the existing reductions, we could take those at this time. All right, so then moving into the construction excise tax program and some background information. So in 2016, Senate Bill 1533 was passed, which allowed cities to adopt a construction excise tax. There was ongoing presentations and work sessions with City Council to evaluate whether or not the city wanted to participate in that. And then in April of 2022, Ordinance 5112 was passed to formally adopt a construction excise tax, and July 1st, 2022 is the effective date of when that tax began to be collected. Following the adoption of the construction excise tax, there was a resolution in January of 2023 that kind of formally put a role of what the Affordable Housing Committee's role should be as it relates to the construction excise tax program. So it includes things like conducting research and outreach, making recommendations to City Council regarding needs and priorities, recommending methods and criteria for allocating, determining, and awarding use of CET funds, and then participating in the review and the recommendations of projects and activities or programs that are seeking the use of the funds. So under that guise, the Affordable Housing Committee picked up discussion in spring of 2023, and at that time, the committee made a recommendation to allow that construction excise tax fund to grow to a meaningful amount before moving forward with discussion on distribution of the funds. In summer of 2024, kind of picked up the discussion on various issues and established kind of what the local goals of the funding would be, took a review of what other cities' programs looked like, and then also began to assess potential approaches to awarding the funding, primarily the frequency, so looking at whether it was an annual basis, semi-annual, or kind of an ongoing program. So then moving forward, it became more of a formal conversation with the development of some draft program materials and a selection process that's being proposed. And so the Affordable Housing Committee guided staff to develop those program documents. And then a subcommittee met with staff as well to focus on a few key topics, including the eligibility for funding, availability for funding, the selection and the review process, and the selection criteria to be used. And then in June of 2025, the Affordable Housing Committee provided a final recommendation on the program implementation, which is what's being presented today. So looking at the purpose and the importance of the CET program. So this tax is meant to help support improved affordable housing opportunities in McMinnville. So as development's occurring, that there's a contribution to accommodating more affordable housing within the city. And for this program specifically, affordable housing, that term means that housing unit, which would be affordable for a person earning 80% or less of area median income based on Yamhill County. So for it to be affordable, they're not spending more than 30% of their gross income for housing costs. And we continue to hear that costs and availability is an issue. So when the city was going through our housing production strategy in 2025, there was a survey with about 500 respondents. And when we asked, what do you think are the most important housing issues in McMinnville, the top three were affordable rental housing, affordable for sale housing, and available rental housing. So it's still what the majority of people are kind of feeling. And then wanted to provide, just for reference, the income limits. This is taken from Yamhill County Housing Authority, their Stratus Village website. So just pulling here that 80% kind of maximum for both a household size of 2 and 4, just as a point of reference for people. And then wanted to share a little bit about how the collection of the CET funds works, and then what the eligible uses of the funds are. So the tax is collected at the time of building permit issue. It's a 1% tax based on the permit valuation for commercial, industrial, and residential development and improvements. And again, the city's been collecting funds since 2022 to build it up to a meaningful amount. At this point, there's just under 1.25 million that's available to distribute to projects and programs. So calling out in here, 33040 lists some exemptions of types of development that are exempt from paying the tax. So obviously affordable housing development that meets that affordability range, and it actually requires a 60-year affordability deed restriction. And then other public benefits that are listed in detail, but some examples are public projects, schools, healthcare, religious uses, and agricultural uses. So before looking at the budget that's available for the projects and programs going out the door, there are some dedications that are directly funded by the budget. So there's a 4% administrative fee for both the building division and finance department to help administer the program. There's a housing planner position that's funded at a 0.75 FTE. So that position really helps make sure that we're staying on top of affordable housing initiatives. So Most recently was that housing production strategy that worked with the community as well as the City Council, Affordable Housing Committee, and Planning Commission to identify 16 actions that the city will be taking over the next 8 years in a work plan for what the priorities locally were to try to address our housing needs. Additionally, by participating and adopting a CET tax, all cities are required from the tax collected for residential development, an automatic 15% of that needs to go to Oregon Housing and Community Services, or OHCS, for their home ownership programs. And then lastly, there should be consideration of using this funding to implement what I was just describing with that housing production strategy and those actions as they relate to affordable housing. Fortunately, the city applied for and was awarded a DLCD grant to support the implementation of the first 4 actions that were proposed in the HPS to help cover for some of those costs by allowing us to bring in a consultant to help with some of the more technical aspects as well. And so no deductions are being proposed this year for that specific work. But that'll be something over that 8-year work plan that we'll have to continue to evaluate, is whether or not we're continuing to get outside money such as the DLCD grants to support the implementation of that. So then after the dedications, as far as what can be used with the remaining amounts, there's kind of 2 groups or 2 buckets that the money can go into. The first one being developer incentives, which is all the allowed uses in the ORS, but some examples that are specifically called out in our local ordinance include system development charges, land acquisition costs, and required public improvements that would be required with the development. The second group or bucket is affordable housing programs, and the examples in our ordinance include things like rent buydowns, down payment assistance, and foreclosure prevention. So another way of looking at it is the developer incentives is providing new housing, and the affordable housing programs is keeping people in their housing, or keeping that housing affordable. I'm sometimes visual. Hopefully, I won't spend too much time on this, but just looking at the distribution for residential improvements in the tax and where those go to. So the gray 15% is that state funding that's automatically given to OHCS. Bless you. The 50% in the blue must go to developer incentives, and then the green can be flexibly used for either affordable housing programs or developer incentives. So that's the tax from the residential improvements. And then the commercial and industrial improvements and the tax associated with that can be used flexibly for either affordable housing programs or developer incentives. Thus far, we've done our best to about have as close to a 50-50 split between both of those groups, between affordable housing programs and developer incentives. And so for 2026 fiscal year, the available CET funds for distribution, there was just over $650,000 available for developer incentives, and about $588,000 available for affordable housing programs. And for the next few slides, I was going to let Heather speak to 2027, kind of looking forward on the budget.
Yeah, so for 2027, we're actually recommending distribution of the construction excise tax funds into these 2 buckets, so the affordable housing programs and developer incentives, in a different way. What we're learning is with the Parks SDCs that the city charges for affordable housing projects, with the need to pay the building fund for the 50% reduction in building permit valuations that is greater than $75,000, that there might be a greater need for funding for development projects creating new inventory moving forward than the $500,000 that's already set aside for affordable housing programs. So our recommendation for fiscal year 2027 would be that all of the construction excise tax goes into the developer incentive bucket so that we can put more money in there. Understanding that $500,000 for affordable housing programs, we feel, based on what we're hearing right now in the community, will be adequate for what those needs are. So what that would mean, thank you. So what that would mean is that we would move forward with what we're getting in terms of 2027 forecasting into those developer incentives, and that would create about 1.2 million in that particular bucket, and then we'll carry forward the 550,000 in the affordable housing programs into 2027 as well. Forecasting's difficult, so this is based on permitting. Permitting's been up and down in McMinnville over the last couple of years based on, we can have anomaly projects. So for residential permitting, if we have one or two large multifamily projects coming in, then that's typically driving those permit values up considerably. If we have one or two large commercial or industrial projects coming in, that can drive that portion of our permits up considerably as well. We're doing our best to forecast it. We wanted to share with you what the actuals have been over the last couple of years so you can see that. In 2024, when we had a lot of residential activity, including two of those multifamily projects that were market projects, you can see the distribution of CET funds that came out in between commercial and residential. In 2025, we saw a reduction in residential permitting, so that went down considerably. In 2026, because of what we saw in 2025, we reduced the forecast for residential collections to 75,000 and also reduced the commercial end to 250,000. We have had a couple of big commercial projects come in this fiscal year, and so as you can see, our year-to-date for the commercial side is actually significantly higher than what we had originally forecasted. So we're going to continue to watch these trends to try and identify forecasting moving forward for this program, because as we talk about what funds are available, and Evan visited with you about some of the policies decisions that have already been made in terms of how some of these funds are to be dedicated in terms of administration and the housing planner and the historic housing production strategy, we want to make sure that there is also a balance to support those sustainably through the next couple of years.
Touched on a lot of that.
Oh, and look at that.
So yeah, happy to field any questions on that section before we move on to a little bit more of the proposed funding award process and the criteria.
Question? I just have a question in the administrative. Is there funds, what about for like David, for legal? Is there does that ever come into play, and is that covered?
So by state law, we can only take 4% of the overall collection for administration of the program. And as we go through this each budget year, we talk about who has the most touch into the program. So the building division is actually administering it because they're the ones calculating it and collecting it with the building permits. And that's the program that we need to keep whole because of the principles of that program. So 3% of that 4% goes to them. And then the finance team is also very actively involved in the collections and distributions after we get it. So 1% goes to them.
Okay. Is that not yet? No. Well, yeah, for right now. Do you have a question? Oh. Chris? Okay, that's it for right
I will
at the
say
moment.
for the record that we pay for the 75% of the affordable housing planner position based on the premise that they're supporting the affordable housing programs and also the development projects coming through the program that will be funded with the construction excise tax fund. So there are costs of those two buckets, so to speak, if you want to think of it that way, and they're assigned into that accordingly.
Okay.
The other thing I didn't share with you is thinking about the next couple of years. We have a couple of larger affordable housing projects that are coming through our pipeline right now in terms of the built environment, and we have limited land. So I think as we look at housing, we'll probably see more of the higher density housing on the limited land right now and the need there. But when we open up our UGB lands, we expect to get a lot more permitting value from residential development in sort of more traditional residential development as well in the UGB lands. And so for the forecasting, I think over the next couple years, we'll be watching it. And then hopefully as we open up the UGB lands, that should trend us into a higher place with the CET funds moving forward.
Okay, just one second. David, could you take your microphone and fold it down? So right now it's going right through Heather's eyes. Thank you. Counselor Tukolsky, you have a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Director Richards, this question's for you. The developer incentives in 2026 are $652,000, and the proposal for 2027 is essentially 1.5 million. It's almost a 2x increase. How often are these incentives utilized fully? And is that 2x increase excessive, or is it reasonable? And how did we determine that?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about how they're used next, because we actually haven't launched the program. That's tonight's discussion with you as council.
Okay.
In terms of our forecasting, the reason we wanted to show you that forecasting is we wanted to show how much we expect to come in next year with permitting. And so we're just making the recommendation that all the construction excise tax funds that come in next year go into this bucket of developer incentive programs. In the budget, they sit in the same fund and sub-fund. I don't know if Katie's online, but so for instance, if when you go through the next step of the process and you start talking about the program itself and how we're going to solicit applications and make decisions for deployment of the funds, if based on that process we have more need in affordable housing programs than we have funds, and we have less need in developer incentives than we have funds, we have the opportunity to move that money around within the budget as long as it stays within the same sub-fund. What we want to do, though, is be sure that we're, forecasting in a transparent way where we see the need. And right now, we see the need in the built environment rather than the programmatic environment. That makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Any additional questions right now? Okay.
All right. So moving into the proposed funding award process and the selection criteria that goes along with it, which this is primarily where the Affordable Housing Committee's work was focused in their meetings. So we were talking a little bit earlier about the frequency of having these funds available, and there was a lot of discussion around that, and kind of where it landed was having it available at an annual basis where the AHC would evaluate annually again to kind of see where we were at with the previous year and the funds that were available and make sure that it's a meaningful amount, considering there is staff and resource time that goes into doing the notice of funding availability and going through the selection process. So wanting to make sure that it's an amount of money that really moves the needle on a meaningful program or a project. But that having it just kind of be at an annual basis rather than ongoing or semi-annual is a good amount of, I guess, time for the administration of having the funds be available, where it felt like kind of a ongoing request was going to be a bit burdensome, I suppose, to continue to respond to those interests. So with that, there was an importance, and on our Affordable Housing Committee, there's a good amount of representation of organizations that are applying for a lot of different funds for different programs and projects that their organizations are trying to support. And so they kind of had that lens that they were bringing into it as far as having a predictable and timely application process that from the time that they submit that application, when would they be getting a decision to know whether or not they were awarded the funds. So I'll touch on that in a little bit here. And I think it's just worth noting that although we can advertise the total amount of funds that we have that are available, the amount of funds that are actually awarded to the projects would depend on the quality of the proposals received. So although there might be close to 1.25 million, if the selection subcommittee in this proposal feels that those projects or programs don't kind of meet the community's needs, there would still be an opportunity to kind of save those funds and let it build into maybe the next year's process, if it felt like it just wasn't competitive enough of a program or project that was being applied for. So for the application process, kind of on the applicant side of things, the Affordable Housing Committee thought it was important to try to do a widespread promotion of the upcoming funding availability once we set a timeline for that in at least 2 to 4 weeks. So having social media posts and most likely in the newspaper and trying to spread that to some of the networks that the Affordable Housing Committee or staff has with some of those agencies that we, or potential developers that we know have been interested in the program. And then having the application period open for at least 4 weeks, but kind of 4 to 6 weeks to give them meaningful time to prepare an application. And then we would move into the city's review process. So the review process essentially has 5 key steps along the way. There's a brief completeness review just to make sure that kind of the minimum application requirements are there and that none of the applications would be denied just by not really having a complete application. Then it would move into a selection subcommittee review, and there would be applicant interviews if needed. And then that selection subcommittee, following the review and the potential interviews, would provide a recommendation to City Council, and then it would go to City Council at a regular meeting for final authorization and awarding of the funds. And the proposed timeline that we're looking at to be able to accomplish all that is somewhere between 50 and 65 days, but trying to have that maximum of 65 days. It'll just be a little dependent on most likely the council meeting that it gets scheduled for. So looking at that particular factor in the selection subcommittee, so what is being proposed right now is that there would be 5 to 7 people represented on that subcommittee. There would be at least 2, but not more than 4 city staff members, and then at least 2, but not more than 4 of some city representatives. So it could be Affordable Housing Committee members, planning commissioners, or city councilors that are represented. And then obviously, to avoid conflict of interest, anyone who is on a project team that's applying for funds would not be eligible to be on the selection subcommittee. So then moving into the selection review criteria that would be used by that subcommittee. There's just slightly different criteria that have been created for whether an applicant's applying for developer incentive funds or affordable housing programs. And so on the application form, the applicant would need to specify which funds they are requesting. Both groups of that funding are essentially have a baseline of 100 possible points of essential criteria. And there's 5 different topics that go into that essential criteria. This is outlined on pages 22 and 24 of the packet. There's the completeness and quality of the submittal, consistency with the purpose of the construction excise tax program and the funding, a readiness to proceed, the relevant experience and expertise of the team that's applying for it, and then the financial planning and due diligence information that's provided. Additionally, the Affordable Housing Committee proposed bonus points for what was identified as key priority outcomes. So there was a lot of discussion on the influence that local matching can have on really making a project move forward. And so there's a bonus point for demonstrating how the leveraging of these local funds would kind of unlock additional support from the state or from other grant sources. There's a metric for deeply affordable housing, so going even further than just the 80% restriction and actually achieving 50% AMI or less on average. Also providing home ownership opportunities. So a lot of the affordable housing that we see getting developed is for rent. And so for the projects that, for the development centers that are helping with home ownership opportunities, having that as a bonus point. There's also a bonus point for projects that would serve historically marginalized populations, and then accessible design. And so a few of these are really kind of taken from the housing production strategy and some of the actions that are proposed there that the city wants to try to encourage. And so that's kind of where these bonus points come from, is that it's in alignment with what that housing production strategy and the proposed actions were. So in looking at the steps that we kind of just reviewed and what a realistic timeline is for moving forward with implementing it when we get city council direction to move forward with implementation of this, to when a project or program would actually be getting awarded funds, does seem close to kind of a 6-month process with everything. We do want to provide some additional time for legal to review all the documents, especially with the review criteria. So we want to account for some of that. If there's any input on the actual documents, just working on kind of finalizing those and some additional kind of peer review before publishing those, then moving into the promotion, having the application period, and then completing that review process. So before we moved into some key discussion points that staff identified that we were seeking some more direction on, are there questions or input that City Council would like to work through on that last section?
There are. Councilor Chenoweth, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to start with probably the hot button issue for me, which is the item, if you go back to the bonus questions, the traditional marginalized people on that list, and the phrasing in which it was put in the packet. I have deep concerns we're running afoul of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution that says we can't advantage or disadvantage anybody based on certain protected classes. And essentially we're doing that. So I struggle having that kind of language the way it was done in this packet. I want to make sure, and besides the fact that for me, the issue is where are people at financially? I don't really care, I don't mean this mean or rude, but I don't care if they're purple or green or orange or what their sexual preference is. I care, do they need the housing? And prioritizing based on some externality doesn't seem to me like it's moving the policy needle the right direction. With recent Supreme Court decisions that have killed affirmative action based on quota systems, we're heading down this path of undoing a lot of these kind of policies that have advantaged one group over another. So I have concerns there. I'd rather not see that in the point system, or maybe worded differently so it doesn't run afoul of that 14th Amendment limitation. So I want to put that out there. The second question, that's a comment, question I have is, if there's a developer that's already potentially looking at some of this fundage, how does that play into this conversation? And maybe this is for Heather.
So I would say there are a couple of projects who are aware of this opportunity, that the city has construction excise tax funds and that we're developing a program for them. They would participate in the solicitation process just like anyone else would. So Evan lined out, if we got direction from you as a body tonight on what's being presented to you, we could get that moving forward and get that solicitation out. You showed July, so we showed in July, and ask for applications.
Okay. I'm not sure that's really hitting at my question, but maybe I need to follow this up later.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a couple things. I, kind of a different than Chris, but I also had a concern about the bonus points. To me, again, I don't know that we even need to ask somebody what color, what race, what gender. It's just everybody apply, and who needs it should be looked at. I hate to, I guess, discriminate. I don't want to discriminate. And then I also wonder on so you have the developers, but on the other, do you get income? I mean, how do you determine their income? Who takes the application? What do we get? How does that process work?
For the affordable housing programs.
Yeah, could you just explain that to me?
Yeah, I would think that so what we envision for the affordable housing programs is it's probably organizations that already have these type of programs established. And a lot of what they would be doing is sharing what their need is, because that's what we hear a lot. Like in the Affordable Housing Committee, for example, is like the need out there is so great, but the resources are limited to how many people they can actually serve and help provide these programs to. So usually those programs come with those income limits and parameters of who can participate in those like home ownership or like home rehab type of programs, where what they would need to be doing is documenting what the parameters of those programs are for the populations that they're serving, to make sure that they're eligible for these funds specifically.
So we're actually working with a already established program by someone else, so another organization? Is that what I'm understanding?
I may weigh in a little bit on this because
Yes,
we're doing
please.
this currently. So typically for for funds that are public funds used to support affordable housing programs, we ask for it to be certified in terms of the income levels, right? So who's making the determination that the end user is meeting the income levels that we want to serve? I think that's your question, right?
Yes.
So in most programs, there's a certification process to go through to make that decision. The city doesn't certify income levels on our current programs. We work with housing partners that do that work, and they'll certify for us. So as Evans stated, many of the programs in McMinnville that are working in affordable housing, either building it or providing programs, have a certification process that they use. And it's the same process they have to use for HUD and others. If we have a partner that doesn't have that certification process, and that has come up as well, we typically will reach out to one of the programs that does and see if they're willing to partner and do the certification for them.
Gotcha. Great, thank you. Any other counselor have questions? Counselor Peralta?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the 14th Amendment questions that Councilor Chenoweth raised. I'm not familiar with any 14th Amendment concerns related to housing and serving historically marginalized populations. I would just remind the council that that doesn't necessarily just mean racial groups. It can mean handicapped people. It can mean people in poverty. But as it applies to McMinnville, I mean, part of our history is to not allow people of certain ethnicities to live in certain parts of town. And that's been, for the majority of our city's history, you know, for the first half of it at least, people who were not Anglo-Saxon, literally, could not purchase properties in several neighborhoods in this community. And I can appreciate not wanting to have some groups advantaged over others, but that is part of our history, and there is a reality that property rights have not been respected for all groups in this community. So I do think it's appropriate to leave some type of language in related to that. I would note that the the largest housing project that we've done in Yamhill County came with stipulations that we reserve units for tribal members. So, and that was, came with funding from the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. So I think that we're well served to have some kind of language to that effect. I don't know that it necessarily needs to be the way that it was presented in the packet, but you know, in the absence of actual legal analysis articulating a concern, I think we need to leave, or we should leave something along those lines in there. Thank you.
Counselor Chenoweth.
To be clear, that was exactly my point, Sal. It's the wording that I'm concerned about, not advantaging necessarily or lawsuits regarding specifically housing. It's the specific wording that called out that I have concerns that could open up this potentiality to us, and I don't want to put us there. So, you know, traditionally marginalized is a better way to put it. Calling out specifically, I think, sets us up for a problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Counselor Tukolsky.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I was going through the criteria for funding, and it looks like readiness to proceed, experience and expertise of applicant, and financial planning and due diligence make up 85% of the point system, and then there's 10% left, or excuse me, yeah, we got 5.5 on this. The bonus points, they don't have any values associated with them, and it seems as though the first bonus point, leverage of funds for additional support, shouldn't actually be a bonus point to me. It should be actually included in the criteria. Because I think that if you have leverage for matching funding, that's probably more important than, I don't know, perhaps consistency with purpose. I don't know. It seems as though we've missed a criteria point for the section where we actually have point values. And I would actually just remove the rest of the bonus points in general, because I don't see that it's going to be helpful to have that many variables in the equation when you're trying to figure out which of these meet the criteria best for the city of McMinnville. That's my recommendation, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'll share a little bit of the insight on the efficient leveraging of funds. It was felt an important enough factor that they wanted to be able to provide those additional points for projects that were able to leverage that. But I could possibly see a way in which that becomes like a subgroup of some of the essential criteria, like the financial planning and due diligence, and then projects that aren't showing how it would leverage those funds would just get a lesser scoring in like that financial planning and due diligence category by not demonstrating that they're leveraging that fund. So, you know, they might get 15 out of 25 instead of 25 out of 25 if it shows that the local matching is really going to unlock a lot of additional funds. Which, yeah, I guess kind of in that last bullet point in number 5, it speaks to that of if this project requires local matching to access state or federal programs, please respond to bonus points for leveraging funds efficiently criteria. So it's already directing people to, like, you can go get some bonus points there. So I think that the connection's already there where that could get reworked, I think, pretty easily.
I think, Counselor, based on the discussions I heard, there was a distinction between leveraging funds, just generally, and then leveraging these funds for state and federal grants. So when the projects are applying for LIFT funds or the tax credit funds offered by Oregon Housing and Community Services, those all have a scoring value, just like you're seeing here, of some sort, and a local match is part of the scores. And we don't necessarily right now with our incentive programs provide actual dollars in hand that a project can go to the state and said, we got this many dollars from the city. We do provide them with a letter saying we're exempting this much money. And so I think the discussion felt that leveraging into those larger funding sources were the bonus point in addition to the general leverage, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, Director Richards, that does make sense. It's just that I do think that leveraging of matching funds is probably important enough to put in a weighting of the essential criteria. It just seems as though if you have that, I won't call it free money, but matching money, it would be unwise to not utilize that. And then I got tripped up on the 100-point total because if you add up the weighting of the essential criteria, it only adds up to 95. So we lost 5 points somewhere in there. It's on page 49 of your presentation. Oh, what, there's 1 point each?
Hey, that's why I'm a planner, not
A lot
an
of work
engineer.
for 1 point.
Thanks for making note of that. There was a lot of back and forth with that, so lost that in the version control.
Thank you.
I think if you look at pages 23 and 25 of the packet where he lines up the actual application matrix and the scoring, those do add up to 100.
Okay, so we shared some of our concerns, and then the application, so you told us how that, they fill it out, you get help from another agency. Counselor
so-
Cunningham?
Yeah, sorry, it sounded like we were weighing in a little bit on the bonus points. And I remember it quite the same of the efficient leveraging was kind of above and beyond. Like this unlocks a lot of extra funds that would have not been able to get there without the CET. And then I think it is highly important that we retain the deeply affordable housing at 50%, because just based off of like the 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom we were talking about at 80%, those are basically market rents for us. Because we use the Portland metro area as our baseline for AMI, it really does allow for the rents to go up substantially. And so I think encouraging people to go for the 50% is would be more impactful to our citizens who are in serious need of this support and this housing. And then I would also just say I would support the home ownership opportunity, because I think obviously people build wealth now specifically through home ownership, and especially for people that are entering it. So, thank you.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? Because I thought it said in this packet you were basing this not off Portland AMI, but or low-income housing, but off Yamhill County low-income housing.
It is off of the Yamhill County area median income, but if you look at in your PowerPoint slide, we provide the most recent for that in terms of Yamhill County. And it's correct that those rents are still, Yamhill County is not that far behind Portland. It's just McMinnville is far behind Yamhill County and Portland. But if you look at the amounts for 80%, it is what would be considered market rate here. I guess I would say to City Council, as we continue to look at these programs over the next coming years, that we keep an open mind for the ability to change some of the parameters of the scoring system, because we're starting to see affordable housing projects that are being built that are serving 50% AMI or less. We're not seeing market rate housing being built right now because of the inability to finance them. And so right now we have a hole of sort of the 60 to 80%. we're looking for.
And then a second question, if I might. Having heard how my fellow counselor tried to describe the first point and heard how you described the first point, I'm thoroughly confused. So what exactly is meant by leverage of funds for additional support?
Well, I thought Counselor Cunningham and I described it the same way. So-
You might have, but my brain didn't process it the same way,
So
so.
my intention was what Counselor Cunningham described it as. It's the ability to leverage your city funds to be able to access a larger pot of funds at the state and the federal level that would, for those larger projects that would bring more impact into McMinnville.
So I would just say, and I think I like that as a bonus point category, as an extra point value, because I think it's worth more. So I kind of like it out there where it's being added as an extra point for what it's worth.
Yeah, and I think the committee members in their discussion didn't want to penalize those projects that weren't going for the state funds on that level, but still were able to leverage funds within the project.
Counselor Peralta?
Thank you, Mayor. Heather, is there any concern that by using the Yamhill County AMI numbers that we're creating a mismatch with the products that are actually going to come in? By that I mean, for example, we're working with at least one developer, but a couple of developers that I've spoken to who are using the Portland AMI for scoping out their projects. And I'm a little worried that if we use the Yamhill County AMI in the city statute, that we might be creating a mismatch in terms of trying to fund those projects with these funds. Because if, for example, a project comes in and they have 25-30% of their inventory at 80% Portland AMI, and it's an affordable housing project, but we stipulate that we're using the Yamhill County numbers, are we then making that project ineligible at that 80% level because we're using Yamhill County AMI, which will be less than the Portland AMI, which is what they're using to scope out their projects?
Yeah, and that's a great point. It also would make it more administratively confusing to try and marry those two up. Does the code itself say Yamhill County, or has that been our
The
discussions?
ordinance 330, yeah.
Oh, so that might be something we want to change.
I would recommend aligning those two things because it seems like most of the projects are coming in at Portland AMI, so we should probably have that mirror.
Yeah, when we put it together, we really wanted, at that time, which was 2018, 17 maybe, we really wanted to encourage affordable housing that met our deepest needs here in McMinnville. And at that time, we weren't seeing a lot of state leverage projects either, so.
Counselor Chenoweth?
I think that's great and not a bad idea, but I would just caution that it may end up killing truly affordable housing funding in McMinnville if we're using Portland numbers. So weigh that out heavily as you're making that decision.
May I?
Counselor Cunningham?
From the state, the Oregon Housing and Community Services, AMI, we are in the top range for the 2024 at 100, hold on. 118,000, which is the same as Multnomah. It's the same number. We wouldn't be pricing ourselves out or anything. It's the exact same number.
Okay. And then, did you have something? Counselor Gary?
It's sort of switching gears a little, so I didn't want to take the steam out of the AMI thing, but on just the subject of the review criteria, I am in support of what's been presented and how it's phrased, but and maybe it's not germane because it doesn't include the points, but when we're talking about awarding money to potential developers and builders for providing these products. I would like to see a section on the application where it's a little bit CV of the builder and frankly, a little bit of their administrative history, just to make sure that they are a quality above board builder. I imagine there'd be some sort of resume and qualifying projects, but I think it's important when we're talking about awarding CET funds to builders that we understand a better, broader snapshot of their track record and history in terms of Oregon CCB or other projects. So again, not necessarily points, but they need to meet some baseline standards. If they are a builder, I understand there's opportunity for other people's to apply and succeed in this program, but if it's somebody that makes their living on building, we should get a little bit more information from them.
Yeah, and that makes sense because we do have relevant experience and expertise of the applicant team, so we
Yeah.
can ask for that information as part of that.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Director Richards just said exactly what I was going to say, so.
Oh, okay. So the other thing that I had just a question, so it said 2 to 4 city staff. I'm assuming that you're kind of implying CDC staff or any staff.
I guess the thought was CDC staff, but if there was other perspectives or recommendations that the council had that they thought would be valuable to include explicitly, could hear
I
those.
would just keep in mind making sure that the concerns of the workload in that department and, how many people you put on the committee based on workload. And then I support an annual review. That was one of the questions or one of the thoughts, I think, coming back annually as things change and be able to take a look at it.
Annual review with city council, annual review with the Affordable Housing Committee, because I think it originally was
Yes.
intended that the Affordable Housing Committee would review it. Do you want that coming to you as well?
I do.
So probably have the Affordable Housing Committee review it and provide a recommendation that we bring to City Council is
Correct.
kind of the operation. Okay.
Anybody else have any more input? Did we answer everything or did we miss something that we need to?
We're doing pretty good. We're doing pretty good on time. We had a few discussion items. Sorry, not to give everyone whiplash. So there was 4 key discussion points that we wanted to make sure we brought attention to see if there were questions and try to seek some clarity. So one of them was focused on the readiness to proceed criteria and primarily for the developer incentives criteria. And so on page 22, they're all listed out. And we were trying to make sure that these kind of guiding bullet points of what we were looking for in an application seemed sufficient. And from the Affordable Housing Committee, there was a lot of discussion on the different phases of a project and where they might be. And there was a lot of thought and interest and discussion on using it for one of those allowed uses of the land acquisition piece. And that's pretty early in the process. So that's where some of this language is talking about, the second bullet point here, if the project includes acquisition of property, the identified property is currently available for acquisition, and an applicant has secured either a purchase option or letter of interest from the seller. So I think primarily that's where we wanted to make sure the council was comfortable with the acknowledgement that that might be kind of the proposal that somebody's coming in. So like an example that continued to come up was possibly a developer that might want to explore a community land trust model to provide more home ownership opportunities, and they might find a piece of land that feels like it would be a good fit for that. But that actual land acquisition cost is what the barrier is to getting a program like that started. So just wanted to point out that specific criteria to see if there was any questions or concerns there.
See Bill nods with a no.
Okay. The other one, I think we've kind of looked at already a bit, but it's around that question of the financial planning and due diligence. And again, the criteria is there on 22 and 24 of the packet, so I don't necessarily need to read that all through, but again, just wanting to make sure that what we are requesting in those bullet points for the applicant to respond to seem like it would be sufficient information that we are getting for the subcommittee to be able to make a recommendation and council to have the final awarding of the funds. Or if there's additional details that council would like to see in that application form.
I don't see any concerns. Anything? You're good?
All right, 2 for 2.
Just a moment. Counselor Tucholsky has a question.
Yeah, thank you. You're talking about the financial planning section, right?
Yeah,
So in the last bullet point, it talks about bonus points for leveraging funds efficiently criteria. Does provide evidence as to why the proposal could not be funded solely through existing state and federal programs. If this project requires local matching to access these programs, please respond to bonus points for leveraging funds immediately efficiently criteria. I don't quite understand how that one plays into the financial planning.
yeah, so the, what's shown on the screen for provide evidence as to why it couldn't be funded through the state and federal program, basically we want these funds to be in addition to grants that are already available through those programs. So trying to kind of fill in the gaps of what somebody doesn't already have a fully eligible, fully funded project that they're moving forward with, that they don't necessarily need the local funds to move it forward. For the second half of that, which is kind of what we've been discussing with the leveraging, in the case where they provide evidence that it won't be fully funded with the state and federal programs, there's the opportunity through that bonus point to provide evidence as to how that local fund would even unlock like the available state and federal programs. So like if not for those local funds, then they wouldn't be eligible. And so it's becoming a more substantial project, which is why it became a bonus point category, because our local matching is helping unlock an even more impactful project is what that's trying to do.
May I respond?
Yes.
Thank you. So I think I understand what you're trying to do. The problem is that we're getting back into bonus points on top of other bonus points. And one thing that I know about planning areas that people like very clear and convincing criteria of what they should and shouldn't do in order to meet the requirements. And the bonus points have already started to, in my mind, cause a bit of chaos as what should I be doing? How do these work? How are they judged? And I just want to throw that cautionary yellow flag out there and say that doesn't seem very clear for someone that's trying to develop something that is going to be at your 50% area. I just don't see how that's going to help. So,
Well, what if I think I get what you're saying, which is we're essentially providing duplicative points for the same effort. And what if that bullet point said, describe the other funding opportunities that you have pursued? I think the interest there is to ensure that projects are looking under every rock that they can look under for funding to make the project successful.
I understand that. I appreciate the effort. I just don't. Bonus points continue to seem to cause a bit of confusion and might continue with others. So, thank you.
So are you thinking that you don't like having any bonus points? Is that what
I just, yeah, I mean, to me, the bonus points are, it doesn't seem to be helpful right now. To me, it should be, this is your criteria, these are your points. much like a syllabus, you know, in
Sure.
university, this is how you're going to be successful or not, and move forward from there. And yeah, there might be extra credit in university, but I don't see it's necessary for the planning department.
Get your
Thank you.
point.
Okay.
Anybody
Yeah,
have any
I
comments?
think we've gotten good feedback and input, like, on how those two things are relating. So I think we can work through what those concerns are and try to make that more clear and explicit, what that's trying to get at. And certainly, you know, we're going to be evaluating this program annually, and once that selection subcommittee gets through their initial review, hopefully we're taking notes on, you know, what those improvements could be, and the refinements come over time as we implement the program. So, okay. And I think this is what was called out. So the consistency with purpose should be 10. So, yeah, the overall weighting of the essential criteria. So just looking for feedback and input. So right now, the most important thing for weighting is the experience and the expertise of the applicant. So we will add something, especially for the developer incentives, about the more information on kind of the credentials and experience of builders specifically. But yeah, kind of showing how this project team is really going to know how to put together a successful project or implement a successful program is what was the highest, followed by the readiness to proceed and the information regarding financial planning and due diligence.
Councilor Tukalski?
Yeah, so I understand the weighting here, and I don't disagree with it. The consistency with purpose, I would actually propose you just replace that with your bonus section of deeply affordable housing. Because if people are incentivized to provide this with 10 percentage points, which isn't shown, then that seems to be offering a higher impact than a singular bonus point of unknown value at this time.
Mayor.
Councilor Chenoweth?
Thank you, Mayor. What I heard Director Richards say earlier is we've been getting a lot of the affordable housing that we're not getting as workforce housing as part of the discussion and the part of the original presentation. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes and no. I would describe it all as workforce housing because we have workforce at different income levels. But a lot of our projects that we've seen recently are serving 60% AMI or less, and we're not reaching up into the 80% AMI, and the private market is not coming forward with the ability to build that due to not being able to achieve financing based on our rents we have here in McMinnville. So it's kind of a catch-22.
So weighting that in here is probably not beneficial. If that's already kind of what's coming our way anyways, adding it as a weight doesn't help with entirely what we're seeing and needing. Am I hearing you correctly?
This is the Affordable Housing Committee's recommendation, so I don't want to overstep that recommendation to you, but I was sharing what I'm observing in the market right now.
Councilor Peralta?
Yeah, my recollection on that was that the Affordable Housing Committee, when they adopted that 50% standard, wasn't that like 2018 or 2019 or something?
No, so this program, as it's being presented to you, was vetted in 24 and 25.
Oh, okay. So that wasn't part of the original,
No, so the original program of incentives that the city started talking about, what can we do to support affordable housing, focused on 80% AMI or less. And that's what's built into the city's code. The Affordable Housing Task Force used to be 80% AMI or less, and then, when they became the Affordable Housing Committee, they raised that to 120% AMI or less to try and get into that higher workforce, or I would say mid-income level workforce units, so.
Councilor Tukalski?
Yeah, thank you. Apparently this is the hill I'm going to die on tonight. The page 24 of the packet has the definition of consistency with purpose. And bullet point number 3, so it'd be section 2, bullet point 3, it talks about one of the criteria for consistency with purpose is reducing barriers to home ownership or rental, which seems to coincide or be almost analogous to deeply affordable housing, which is a bonus point section in the review criteria. So would it be possible just to add the deeply affordable housing as a 5th bullet point to the consistency with purpose, giving you 5 bullet points worth 10 points, therefore each one bullet point is 2 points. It still gives you the points for that 50%, but it doesn't cause confusion with the bonus area. That's all I have, thank you.
We're happy to take direction based on the bodies.
Sounds like the bonus points are something to think about, definitely. Okay, so you're going to take direction. Any more questions?
Well,
So what Heather was getting at is she would like the body to weigh in on that, if that is direction from the body or if that is a wish from Counselor Tukalski.
Anybody?
Because the staff can't make a decision without direction from the body.
Just the one option or bonus points at a whole? Is there something you're proposing? Would you like to just move a couple of them up inside the body of the other criteria?
Yes, I would. That's exactly what I would like to do.
Okay.
Yeah,
Some of them are a little bit repetitive, I think.
it is.
Any counselor provide direction, comments? Are you okay with having them look at those and see if they're redundant?
I would,
Just to clarify, Counselor Cunningham, the goal for staff is to come away with an established 100-point scoring system tonight.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with how it's written here. And
I'm comfortable with how it's written as well.
Counselor Chenoweth?
I like all of Counselor Tukalski's points. I get what he's saying. I think we're confusing and muddying the water, and I like his suggestion. I do think calling that out as a line item underneath consistency with purpose, I think gives it more of a proper weighting than that I would want to see, rather than bonus points. I think that's probably a better place for it. So I'm supportive of what Counselor Tukalski is suggesting.
Counselor Peralta?
I genuinely do not feel very strongly about it either way. So if staff wants to make that one small change, I could live with that. If you choose not to, I could live with it as well. I don't think it really matters, because I just think that as long as we have a consistent method that's internally consistent, it's not going to make much of a difference either way. That's my view.
You're okay.
So the one small change I'm hearing is the deeply affordable housing, which has a bonus points of 10, move that into a bullet point under consistency with purpose.
That was my proposal, yes.
You guys okay with that one change? And then the wording on,
We'll look at the protected class wording
Yes.
from a legal perspective.
perfect. Anybody opposing this?
I think, to me, if the whole thing is based off of 80%, but then we throw a bullet point in the main criteria that says 50%, I think that's more confusing than leaving the 50% in a bonus section.
This is so much fun.
I've said my piece, I'm done. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else support the change or want to leave it the way it is? Okay, so we have two. You want to leave it?
I'm fine with how it is, yeah.
Sal, give me a vote. Abstain. So I had to decide.
Or you decide, either way.
Let's make the change.
Okay.
Okay. Do we answer everything for you?
Right.
One more question.
If we are okay with the representation on the selection subcommittee that's being proposed.
Yeah, and you'll appoint the people later, or just the framework for that, how that is? Yeah. I'm fine with the framework, yeah.
Counselor, oh, go ahead.
The same, I don't know how often of a clip it'll be, but it'll be the same people making those decisions, you know, whether year over year or month after month.
So we're going to do one solicitation process. Right?
Okay.
So it would be for this first year, and then you built into this an annual review with the Affordable Housing Committee that comes to you. So we could move forward with as described, and if we find out that there's, you know, lessons learned, that's part of our review, and we come back with that discussion.
Very good.
Counselor Chenoweth?
I do have concerns about the makeup. I would prefer to change the first sentence to 2 subcommittee positions shall be dedicated to city staff, period. Ended at 2. 2 positions shall be dedicated to the Affordable Housing Committee, period. And then 3 shall be made up of planning commissioners, city council members.
Yeah, I think the challenge the flexibility that's built in, especially the second bullet point, is the Affordable Housing Committee has a lot of organizations represented that could be future applicants. It also has 2 planning commissioners and 2 city councilors that are on it. So very quickly, the Affordable Housing Committee could not have anyone available to serve in that position if there's conflicts of interest, or they're serving kind of that double duty of, like, Councilmember Cunningham and Peralta, like, are actually formally, the Affordable Housing Committee is a little unique that way, where they are formal members on that committee as well.
So that's my concern. I don't want to see more than 2 out of that committee. And my concern is I don't want more than 2 off of staff, because you're weighting that heavily with planning department, CDC people. So I don't know how you fill the rest of those spaces. Don't really care. I mean, I do. I want people that are qualified to be on a committee like that. But outside of that, I would want to, my containment is around those 2 categories.
So if we understand you correctly, and we haven't decided, just to be clear, that the staff people would be CDD members. I do think your affordable housing planner should be part of it, because they're presumably the trained person to understand these projects. But with that said, what I'm hearing from you, Councilor Chenoweth, is a concern of too many Affordable Housing Committee members being on the selection committee. Evan's concern is, because of the makeup of the Affordable Housing Committee and potentiality for conflict in the future, that if we said at least 2 positions shall be dedicated to Affordable Housing Committee members, we may not get to 2. So maybe we reword that and say not more than 2. Okay. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
I'm good with that. Counselor Cunningham?
Question. This would not be appealable to council, so it wouldn't be an issue with having council on the selection committee?
You are making the final decision of awarding the project.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay. Any comments about the suggested change by Counselor Chenoweth? Anybody opposed? All right.
And in terms of conflict, we're going to vet that with legal counsel as well, because we had a question about planning commissioners, because most of these projects will probably go through land use at some point.
Okay. I believe we are finished, aren't we, Evan? get everything
Yeah,
for you?
thank you for all that direction. I think we have, some of that direction with legal review to move forward with, but I think we have the direction we need to move forward with that application process into the summer and get it going. So, thank you.
Thank you. I will now adjourn the city council work session meeting at 6:57, and we'll be back in just a few minutes with our regular city council.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Okay. Where's my? Okay. Counselor Peralta? It is 7:02, and I'd like to call the city council meeting to order. Claudia, can I have a roll call?
Counselor Chenoweth?
Here.
Counselor Geary?
Here.
Counselor Cunningham?
Here.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Present.
Council President Peralta?
Here.
And Mayor Morris.
Here. If you're able to stand, please stand. We'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's time for public comment. Any interested audience members are invited to provide comments, and any comment provided that requires some type of follow-up will be assigned to a staff member. Anyone may speak on any topic other than a matter in litigation, a land use decision that is or will be in front of the city council, or a matter scheduled for a public hearing at some future date. Comments will be limited to 4 minutes per person for a total of 32 minutes. If you are on Zoom and wish to speak, please use the raise your hand feature or chat feature and send a chat to the city recorder team. You will need to provide your contact information prior to being promoted to speak. Once your turn is up, we will announce your name and unmute your mic. Claudia, do we have anybody signed up?
It's Mark Davis.
Welcome, Mark.
Mark Davis, let's see, just have to say city, right? This isn't planning
Yeah.
commission. McMinnville. I'd like to follow up on your conversation from the work session. I think your selection subcommittee should include a private citizen who's not connected with the planning department, the planning commission, the city council, et cetera. I mean, you got realtors, you got, property developers, you got bankers, you got a lot of people in this community that have concerns about housing, and I think having an outside voice, there doesn't need to be the majority, but just somebody else to chip in their comments would be very helpful. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Can you share that with Evan, Heather? Okay. Claudia, do we have anybody else?
That's everyone that signed up.
Okay, nobody on Zoom or anything? Okay. Next, we have our consent agenda. Does any counselor want to remove any item from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda as proposed?
I'll move.
Counselor Cunningham?
Second.
Second from Counselor Geary. Any further discussion? All right, Claudia?
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Counselor Geary?
Aye.
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Aye.
Council President Peralta?
Yes.
The consent agenda has passed unanimously.
Perfect. Next up, we have resolution number 2026-16, a resolution approving an employment agreement with Adam D. Garvin as city manager. I'd like to call on City Attorney David Leitenberg to present.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a short slideshow to go over the employment agreement that is included in your packets. This agreement substantially is based on the agreement that the city had with Jeff Towery in the past and on some other things that have been discussed with the interim city manager and myself and Director Hedges, as well as certain best practices, reconfigurations, and other ideas that we tried to put in to make a better agreement at this point. I would like to spend a little bit of time just walking you through some of the more salient points that make this differ from what you may be used to in the past. Aside from two highlighted portions of this agreement, I'm not setting aside time to discuss the other terms. If you have questions or concerns about the other terms in the agreement, you should do that hopefully best while I'm going through the portions of the contract. Does anybody have any questions about background before we begin?
I think so.
Section 1 speaks to employment and duties. Again, this is fairly straightforward. I wanted to draw your attention to two changes or considerations, two salient points. One is with regard to ethics. That is Section E. What we did here, what I introduced here, is something that's generally considered a best practice and largely for the protection of the city manager position. It's the idea that a city council will not request the city manager do something unethical, and includes a code of ethics along with that. It's the International City Manager Association Code of Ethics. It's a well-respected document. But I wanted to point out that that's a new addition and is there specifically not to necessarily call the city manager to meet those ethics, but specifically that the council will not ask him to violate them. Outside employment is something that is relatively straightforward. I don't think this term was changed as far as its actual scope, but as you know, interim city manager Garvin has business interests in the city, and this acknowledges that those exist, acknowledges that he will continue to have those interests and not be prevented from having those interests, while at the same time saying that he will devote a full working time to this position. Term and termination. This is Section 2 of the agreement. One of the changes is what I hope is a further clarification of what for cause is in the city with regard to this agreement. This was an effort at synthesizing things that I had seen in other agreements and municipalities, as well as making something that is understandable, workable, and protects the interests of the city. As you can see, cause termination in 2D has 3 parts to it. The first is generally unsatisfactory performance. That's tied with a cure period. So if the council were looking to terminate the city manager for performance-based issues, they would have to notify him of those performance-based issues and give him 45 days to cure those issues. The second one, just to be very clear, that does not apply to termination without cause. If the council is going to terminate without saying that it's a performance-based issue, if they're just going to do this at their will, which they have the will to do, that 45 days and the performance identification does not apply. Conviction of or entry of a guilty or no contest plea to a felony offense. It's a generally understood term and is not tied directly to work with the city. The last one is a little bit broader than that. Violation of law or engagement in misconduct that has caused or is likely to cause material harm to the city. This is specifically with regard to business inside the city.
If we have questions over a section, are we supposed to bring that up now or at the end?
You could bring it up now. I'm still gonna hit those 2 sub-points, determine termination, but I'll let you know before I go on from this point. Death and disability, it's a straightforward term. I am bringing it to your attention because it wasn't really well formulated in the last city manager contract. It basically says if there is death or disability, the contract is terminated. And mutual agreement. This is a new term that allows the parties to agree to separate and make their terms at that time. It's a situation in which we would be in an effort to negotiate this. It allows us to negotiate that in that case. It would be outside of the rest of these terms, which would normally agree if the parties are at odds in one of these situations. It's just another opportunity. That's all I've got before moving on to the next one, Councilor.
Councilor Chenoweth.
So yeah, I am wanting, one of the things I was hoping to see in this agreement that I do not see in this agreement was actual definition on a term, number one, and an opt-out option at some point in time down the road, 2-3 years. Say, I didn't have a fixed thought in my mind on what that time frame looked like, but I don't see any of those types of wording in there and would like to see them in there. Is there a reason why we don't have them in this particular contract that's in front of us?
There are a handful of reasons why they're not in this particular contract. The first one being is that this largely reflects the last city manager contract that we had that didn't have a defined term. That is relatively common among city manager contracts that I reviewed. Terms are also relatively common among city manager contracts that I reviewed. I don't know exactly what you mean by opt-out, but I will happily answer that once I explain the rest of this. There's a legal concept that is implicated here that my professional group has been, over the last few years, talking quite a bit about, and that is this idea here in Oregon that subsequent city councils cannot be bound by the decisions of prior city councils when it comes to governmental functions. And it's generally understood and agreed that the hiring of an executive officer, the appointment of an executive officer, is a governmental function. And so cities deal with that in a number of ways. And I think the two major ways that I understand and see are having no term, but explicitly saying that the contract remains at will of the council, or having a term that corresponds, I would say, to the shortest time between council elections. In our case, that would be 2 years. And then mechanisms for advancing that contract at each of those times.
But there are contracts that are out there that are 5-10 years in length.
And I can't say what the thought process behind that was, or whether they had considered this concept, but I think that those are the two approaches that are available to us here.
So on the opt-out, what I'm saying is I'd like an opportunity for us 2 years down the road to have a revisit of this discussion with an amicable breakup, so to speak, if it's determined that it's just not working out. So an opt-out opportunity that is fixed within the contract.
Functionally, a 2-year contract term here. That's basically what that is. I guess we could put together a mechanism for whatever follows, but functionally, I hear you asking for a 2-year contract.
I suppose. I mean, that's not really what I want. I just want the ability to transparently, it's not like Adam, and I hate talking, this is always so weird to me to have these kinds of conversations in front of somebody, but it's not like Adam has been through a bunch of schooling in this particular field. He has been tried with what I would call some medium difficult situations that have occurred in his interim time. But we haven't seen how things happen in a high pressure, high difficult situation that comes his way. I would just like the opportunity as a protective mechanism to the city, as well as in some ways a protective mechanism to him. He gets 2 years down the road and he's like, I don't know why I signed up for this. I want out. I think both of us having that opportunity to walk away at 2 years is a worthwhile option. I suppose one could argue that your, the way that you've written the ability to terminate this contract kind of allows for us to do that. right? And we could have a negotiated departure. But that's only if both sides agree.
That's right.
What I'm looking for is something that gives us an out without a high financial pain tolerance to either side, or pain exposure to either side.
I think put into contractual terms, that is again, a
Two-year
two-year
contract.
Counselor Peralta?
No, I just need to clarify my thoughts before I go into the mic. So my concern, I mean, I get where you're coming, I get where Counselor Chenoweth is coming from with respect to wanting to have some type of performance review in a couple of years that might trigger a different kind of path than what's currently envisioned in the contract. I just don't think it's fair to set a 2-year term for an incoming city manager where we're saying whether it's the current applicant or a future applicant, you know, come to McMinnville from somewhere else or drop all of your business interests and become the city manager, and you really only have a 2-year contract. I just think that's a really difficult situation to put a potential executive position into. So I'm pretty comfortable with the contract that was drafted to this point. I know there's some questions that we need to figure out. But I wonder, David, in your experience, have you come across any contracts where there is some type of performance review and it triggers some type of possible out at that point, maybe with consideration?
Like I said, I've seen a good number of these that have very short terms, 2 or 3 years. I cannot say off the top of my head the rest of the mechanisms that they had surrounding that. And I'm sure it runs the gamut.
Yeah, so I'll just say I'm comfortable with what you've drafted. I'm mindful of Counselor Chenoweth's comments, but I'm at least comfortable with what you've drafted.
I think in a way, termination for cause, unsatisfactory performance, if we weren't happy, that's kind of where that would fit into. So it's there. I have a concern with 45 days. I think that's less than what we give all of our other employees to come to rectify an issue. So that I'm a little concerned, but is that fair? I mean, if Adam's fine with it, great, but I think there's other employees that it takes longer to, you know, what is identified, how much time to change it. That 45 days isn't a lot.
That's a fair consideration, and I will definitely let Adam answer that himself. But what you have in front of you is what we have tentatively come together on so far.
Okay, so
If he comes around and asks for more, that would be, you can
so I
certainly
think that might address some of what your concern is. Adam, I'm going to ask you, are you okay with the 45 days? And I guess my concern also is the politics of it all. I mean, so is the council a supermajority vote, or have we not got there yet?
We haven't got there yet.
Okay.
As far as the cure window, I mean, I think that's I looked at that with David as far as a window that's, you know, that we're going to move through a process. There's going to be a review. You guys are going to identify some things, and you're going to know, you know, if those are short-term curable things or if they're more long-term things that have been building. So if you guys want to create some additional space there in that window and move it to 60 or 90 days, I'm definitely open to it. But I was also trying to, you know, be amicable through this process.
Yeah. I feel like a 90 days is more reasonable because depending on what it is, it's very vague. We don't know what the issue might be, and it may not come up for a while in order to see a change.
So I'm fine with the 45 days. I think politically speaking, the way political winds blow, I don't think cuffing somebody to 90 days necessarily is a good idea for future council to have to stick to that 90-day window. David, am I hearing you say to me, if I want a 10-year term, you're not willing to write that?
I think that it has some real legal problems. The council can direct the terms that it wants to direct. I can advise you of the legal issues, and I think that there are Oregon-specific legal issues with a term like that.
Okay.
Question, do city managers, I mean, that seems like a long term. A lot of city managers don't even stay in their positions that long, do they? Towery was here for 9.
Right now, the average city manager is 5 to 7 years in a seat. McMinnville's been unique that it's seen city managers sit a long time, you know, with Joe Dancer and Kent Taylor. As far as what I've found in the industry since coming into this interim role, that window keeps getting shorter and shorter. It used to be 7 to 10, now it's 5 to 7. Part of that is political landscape, part of that is
The intent of putting language like that in a contract is saying we want you to stay for a while, right? More than anything, you have the outs to get out of the contract, both sides do. It's not that we're guaranteeing they're gonna stay 10 years. It's making a statement of what we are hoping to see happen. And the reason I'm asking if you're saying, no, you won't do that, is because if you're not willing to write a 10-year contract, then having a 2-year out is kind of pointless, right? The whole point of a 2-year window is that you're wanting an option out of a longer contract if it's not looking like this is working real well. And what you've written is a year to year, essentially. It's the way kind of the way I view it. Well, it's an ongoing, perpetual is a better way to put it.
Yeah, it's a contract without a term. The city manager serves at the will of the council.
Okay.
Counselor Peralta?
I was just going to ask the board, I mean, does anybody else share the same concern, or can we move on to the next point for now? Not the short circuit.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The only concern I have is the 45 days from receipt of unsatisfactory performance. In the position of city manager, it's hard to make changes within a short time period, and I don't believe that 45 days is long enough. I'd like to see something at least 60, because it's hard to turn the tides that quickly in a position that has such a significant impact on everything.
Any other input on that 45 days?
I think your point was well made, Mayor.
Okay. So are we 60 or 90?
I think 60 is probably the right way to go, because I think ultimately, you know, the cure doesn't have to be fully cured. It just needs to be in operation. It needs to be going well. If we can't see that something's not headed in a good direction after 60 days, then I'm probably sweating.
Okay.
So I think 60 would be fine.
All right. Counselor Chenoweth, are you good with 60? Okay, well, great. So 60 it is. Okay. Counselor Garrett?
60.
Okay, we're going to change that to 60.
Thank you. Compensation and benefits out of sections 4 and 5.
May I ask a question before we move
I think
forward?
we skipped something. Okay. Counselor Tukolsky?
If you're going to compensation and benefits, section 4 and 5, we haven't talked about section 3 severance. Was the intent to?
The highlighted sections have their own slides. I am just bringing you through the sections that currently we're together on. I will get to severance.
Thank you.
And we haven't passed the area talking about supermajority yet.
There is not a supermajority in this contract.
I think,
So you're talking about term, where we just were.
oh. Yes, where?
Termination by the city, majority vote of the city council in accordance with the charter. That's
Yeah.
section B. Again, this is a contract without a definite term, and the city manager serves at the will of the council.
So majority is 4. You wanted to make it, go ahead.
I just, the political winds in this state are concerning to me. And we haven't seen it as bad in McMinnville as some other cities have experienced with radical shifts based on politics rather than based on doing what's best for the city. And I'm just nervous about not having some sort of protection in place. And this is more for Adam than it is for anybody else. It's for the city as a whole to help prevent those political winds from shifting and being taken out for reasons that are not have anything to do with his ability to do the job. So
So are you proposing instead of 4, 5?
5 probably.
Okay, so the proposal on the table is a supermajority of 5
Yeah.
versus 4. Any other?
But it would need to be written such that it says supermajority and let the numbers fall where they are, because currently we only have 5 people.
This is true.
If I may speak to that before further discussion, I think this is problematic under the charter, which requires that the city manager be appointed and renewed by a majority of council.
Yeah.
I don't think it is, because that doesn't say anything about terminated. That's talking about renewal, and that's talking about appointed. It's about keeping. That's not, or hiring. That's not about removing.
Understand your point, but the generally accepted constructive principle is that the power of appointment includes the power of termination unless otherwise stated.
Councilor Peralta?
I just philosophically I'm not comfortable with the supermajority provision, but I'm also persuaded by the city attorney's comment that it's not consistent with our charter. I mean, we're paying him for legal advice. I trust the legal advice, and if it's not consistent with the charter, it's not consistent with the charter, regardless of my opinion or your opinion, you know?
That argument's not persuasive to me, but I am curious why it is you're comfortable with or you're uncomfortable on general principles with the.
We can talk about that offline, but I am definitely in alignment with the city attorney's view of the city charter.
Any other councilors have comments?
I would not be supportive of it, making it super majority.
Councilor Cunningham?
I would not be supportive of making it a supermajority.
Councilor Sokolsky? Just input, I mean, we already have. Just if you want to.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I too am concerned about politics intervening in the personal life of a dedicated city manager. And it does concern me that that person could be removed without cause by a potentially vindictive city council, or perhaps maintained by a city council that enjoys what the individual is doing, but doesn't necessarily meet the needs of the city as well. The politics concern me, they do. And regardless of, it doesn't matter which side of, you know, anything, it concerns me personally for the individual that signed up for that position. So I would be in support of a 5, or excuse me, can't use a number, super majority, just because it feels as though we should be protecting the opportunity that this person has taken. But I would love to hear why you think that that's not a great idea, if you would, or if you do.
Substantially because the charter calls out a majority of council for the appointment. And I think that creating a supermajority would overburden what is called out in the charter at that point. If we're talking about the political wins of subsequent city councils, first, that speaks to the point that I was making earlier about Oregon law, and I appreciate the opportunity to reiterate. There's a principle in the state that subsequent councils can't be bound by prior councils. And so political wins do shift things, specifically with regard to government functions. I think it is legally incumbent to preserve that with this agreement, lest it be found illegal. And second of all, as far as the blowing of political winds, sometimes that's just understood, particularly with a chief executive position. The protection for an individual in this space is the severance provision that's tied to not-for-cause termination without cause. We haven't negotiated exactly what that is, but the fact that it exists is exactly that protection.
All right, so,
May I make one more comment?
yes, you may.
So I appreciate what you're saying about the city charter, and I understand. And so if we're sticking with the majority of the council, I can understand that, but it seems as though we also have to take into consideration the magnitude or the value of the severance as well. And if those two don't align, then I would have a hard time saying that I don't want a supermajority if the severance package is such that it doesn't provide for a soft enough landing for this individual to continue on into another position. So
Correct.
It's hard to answer that first question without knowing the second.
So,
We can absolutely revisit this if you feel the need at that point. We don't
Okay,
need to
thank you.
make this a one-way train.
Thank you.
More questions on term? May I? Compensation and benefits, sections 4 and 5. The significant difference between Adam's interim city manager contract in this section and this contract is that it reflects a car allowance. That was the same as in Jeff Towery's contract. It is $500 a month. I think it's $500 a month.
so it's $500 a month. He doesn't get mileage unless he goes a longer distance. Correct? That's part of the mileage. Got it. And everything else is the same as what he already has right now. Counselor Geary.
On A, salary, the 198,120 annually equivalent to step 12 on the city manager salary schedule. Will you remind me the context for where 12 is? Is 12 the top, the middle, the bottom?
There are 15 steps.
15 steps. Very good, thank you.
Counselor Chenoweth.
Does that start at, so are we saying that 12 is, we're moved up from 15 to 12, or 12 is the 12th step up the rung?
They increase. 15 would be the top step. 12 is 3 below the top step.
And he's at where he's at right now.
That's where he's at right now already.
Yes, he didn't take an increase. All right, any other questions? Okay.
Performance evaluation. This section was mostly just beefed up a little bit. Substantially, it was tied to the terms of this agreement that includes the city manager's job description, the terms of this agreement, and also the city manager's performance in accomplishing otherwise adopted goals and organizational objectives. I'm sure you are well versed in the public meeting laws that say that we can't review those objectives or direct those objectives during an evaluation, but we can talk about otherwise set objectives and how a city manager is meeting them. The change between annual and biennial, the last city manager contract called for an annual review. It was a challenge to meet. This calls for an annual review until we hit even numbered years after 4 years, and then biennially.
So every year for the first 4 years, then biennially. Yearly. Okay.
Counselor Chenoweth?
And that actually helps to quell some of my concern by doing that annual review. So thank you for that.
Yay.
Just to point out one additional point, the council does not lose the ability to conduct additional reviews if something comes up.
Any other questions on that?
Sorry?
Chenoweth would like to know how that works. What, the review process?
If we're going to conduct more reviews, you just said we don't lose the ability to ask for extra ones. How does that work? Do we have to give them notice? How does that transpire?
Depends on what exactly it is. If we're conducting a performance review, then yes, that includes notice provisions, his opportunity to opt out of an executive session, a handful of public meeting law things along that line, but yes. Professional development in section 8. This was modified slightly to reflect an expectation of continuing legal education and specifically require membership and attendance to OCCMA conferences. What it goes out of its way to do is not bind Adam or the council to other particular conferences or opportunities, but to obligate the council to not fail to fund these opportunities as they may arise. We also include a section about local engagement. Historically, that dealt with particularly service clubs. Here, it includes service clubs or other local engagements as the city manager sees valuable. Any questions?
Are you good with that, or approval of the council, or with the request? No? Councilor Gary, do you have a question?
And finally, in section 10, confidentiality, this is not really a departure from anything. It's best practice. It points out the truth that the city manager holds a lot of city business closely, and I mostly wanted to point out to you that it's in here. This is the extent of the contract that I wanted to call out for particular review before moving on to the 2 highlighted negotiation sections. If you would like to ask me about other parts of the unhighlighted contract, I'd be happy to hear them now.
Councilor Chenoweth?
Yeah, so just cause. If city manager breaks confidentiality, is that qualified as just cause?
Let's look at the cause section. It would depend on exactly how confidentiality is broken, but
I mean, my answer based on what you said is no. It would not qualify as just cause, but
I think if you look at D3, 2D3, we've got engagement in misconduct that has caused or is likely to cause material harm to the city, including but not limited to misappropriation, breach of trust, neglect of duty, or failure to perform duties in a manner that is consistent with applicable law. Not only is that terminable, it's not subject to the 45-day cure period.
Thank you.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Yeah, if I may go back to section, looks like 8 for a moment, the professional development area. Is it okay if I go backward for a moment?
Please, yes.
So, based on my experience in other areas of business, if you don't have some oversight into, like section B, it talks about professional development opportunities and conference attendance when attendance is required by or relevant to an individual. Those can sometimes turn into opportunities for, I'll call it waste or, a junket that like you can articulate, yeah, it has a little bit of relevance to my position, but people might be, flying around the world every 2 or 3 months to attend something that's relevant. I would be more comfortable moving forward in the professional development area if we could at least have a bit of oversight there. And I don't know who would provide that oversight, but it doesn't seem completely responsible to just allow in this case, the city manager or anybody to just continue on with whatever they think is relevant and spend as much money as they see fit.
So I actually agree that the city manager works for the council, that approval of a proposal, approval by the council. Nope.
Currently, as it's written, that would include attending a city manager lunch.
Oh, no.
That's much too low of a level. I mean,
It's the bigger events, I think, is what Dan is.
it is. If you're going to be flying internationally for something, or I don't know.
Would you like to set a dollar amount for council review for any single instance of spending?
Counselor Peralta would like to ask you a question in regards to this. before
Yeah,
we
just
move
point of
forward.
clarification. I mean, don't we budget, aren't these line items in the budget? So we handle the approval of this during the budgeting process already, I believe.
There's a certain amount of discretion into how detailed those lines get, but it has been my experience that particular conferences are called out in our budgets.
So item D in that same section calls out the reasonable annual funding and the adopted city budget process. As far as item B and C and why they're more vague than others is Jeff's contract called out specific service organizations. And I wanted, as I continue to rebuild relationships around the city, I wanted to have flexibility to choose who I engage in and not be stuck with one organization as those relationships organically come to light. As
Counselor,
far as council review, to what David, I mean, there's a lot of things that I go do right now that are very low dollar amount. And so a full council review would be pretty burdensome. As far as if we wanted to say like an out-of-state conference or something of that nature, that needs to come before council leadership, and I get in writing from whoever council president and the mayor is at that time, a written, I send them an email, they write back acknowledging that's good. I would be amicable to something like that, so there is some guardrails that get to Councilor Tukolsky's point, but a full council review for anything I think is a little much.
absolutely, that is definitely not what I was implying. I think it was more of, you're not going to Italy just because you want to go to Italy, that we would like to authorize that or not authorize that. Counselor Gary?
Yeah, I don't think this line is a concern I share. I think the desire for that level of scrutiny and is in conflict with the confidence you should have in the person that we're handing this level of agreement to. So I don't share this concern.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Yeah, if I may, and then Councilor Chenoweth had something. I cut him. Yeah. And I don't consider it a level of scrutiny. I just consider it a level of transparency. And I'm not asking to bring it to the entire council because that would be ridiculous, but it would be nice to understand if there's a large trip plan that it's brought before the mayor and the council president, at least. That's all I'd ask.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Thank you. I would actually concur more with Sal on this one. I feel like the budget process, we set up a budget amount for this kind of stuff. I feel like in the curing process of behavior that we have set up in an earlier portion of the contract, if we see them flying around the world, we'll be able to cure that in a 45-day window or 60-day window. So I don't really see the need for that. I appreciate his willingness to bring it to leadership, and I think that's a good thing. But I don't see the need for any contractual change on this one.
And I just add that you bring a lot of stuff and tell Sal and I what you're doing. It's great already, but I appreciate Counselor Tukalski's concern for sure.
Okay.
Counselor Tukalski, did you have anything else right there?
No, I support what you said. Thank you.
Okay.
Shall I? Residency. That is section 6 of the contract. Adam requests a term broader than strict residency as he hopes to move to property near but outside city limits sometime in the future. To give some context to this request, Jeff Towery's agreement required residency. This sort of requirement is not otherwise required by law or charter. And cities in my review run the spectrum from strict in-city residency to no requirements at all.
Counselor Chenoweth?
If we're going to put any sort of requirement along these lines, I think zip code is fine.
Counselor Gary?
When, in your experience with other city contracts, what's the intent behind the residency requirement?
That is a similar policy concern to that which councilors themselves are subject to. It's the idea that somebody involved so closely with the management and execution of city policies is subject to them.
I'm good with zip code. We have a lot of rural that aren't in the city limits, but are McMinnville addresses, and I am absolutely A-okay with that.
Mayor,
Yep.
I also think that idea is a great idea, but in terms of the current housing crisis we find ourselves in, it seems like maybe it's an outdated idea in this particular case.
Tough housing again. Counselor Tukalski? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, no,
You know.
I'm just jumping in.
Yeah, thank you. I was just looking at the McMinnville zip code in the map, and it's, I'll just say interesting. I would prefer something a little bit more gracious. As an example, you couldn't live just east of Lafayette and be a city manager, but you could live, almost to Sheridan and be the city manager. So to me, a zip code is easy, but it doesn't really make sense. I'd rather just say within the county, Yamhill County.
Okay, so we have a county and a zip code proposal. Counselor Gary?
I guess sort of, what's our budget committee makeup requirement? Sort of, I think that we bumped into it there where if you're not a property tax paying citizen, we don't want you weighing in on the property taxes of our city. I think like the budget committee has a residence requirement, and so I see that the concept being that, like what you said, but building on the actual, you can have a 97128 zip code and not pay taxes into the city's budget.
Can I chime in?
Yep.
So for my review of city manager contracts, the residency requirement is very antiquated. As far as local city managers, the Amity city manager lives in McMinnville. The Lafayette city manager lives in Newburgh. The Newburgh city manager contract has no residency requirement, even though the city manager does live in the city limits. That is by his choosing. I will still maintain property in the city, multiple properties in the city that I pay taxes on and city service fees on and everything else. This is to really get at a piece of property I purchased a number of years ago that I eventually looked to build a house on. And having a city limits residency requirement would guarantee a very short term for this position.
And let me be clear, I wasn't saying that I wanted a zip code. I said, if we're going to have any requirement, you know, I'm good with county. I don't see that. I don't even see the need for the requirement, frankly, but.
Counselor Peralta, do you want to weigh in?
My only comment is that this is a one-off, so, because the next contract we do will have different provisions, so from my perspective, it doesn't really matter whether it's a county or zip code. The only question is, are we okay with them living outside of the city limits, which I am, so.
So I think the answer is to just don't write one, right? There's no residency requirement. It's not a zip code, it's not an area, it's just don't write a residency requirement.
If I may, as the attorney here, if we don't write one at all, then he could technically move out of state. You would have to deal with that as you saw fit, but there are a lot of fair arguments that commuting and attending meetings remotely would be sufficient. The ability to show up to the city, especially in emergency management situations, is not nothing, and I would recommend at least considering these ideas.
Okay.
So we can either go Yamhill County, or we can do mileage from City Hall as well. If we have, somebody has to calculate that, but go ahead.
I just want to double down on Yamhill County. It'll make it easy. If you do mileage, it's like, did you drive the back road? Did you drive 47?
Okay,
Yeah.
so I think the majority of us are fine with Yamhill County.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
Severance. This is section 3, and again, as you can see in section 3, tied particularly to termination by the city without cause. Adam requests 12-month severance applicable upon execution of this agreement. For context, like I said, severance is tied to termination by the city without cause, not applicable to other termination situations. Jeff Towery's employment agreement included 6 months severance, again, applicable upon its execution. I've got it here, though. And I had originally proposed in here a new idea, an increasing scale whereby each year of employment added a month to the severance amount with a particular cap, which I had proposed at 6 months.
Did you have a proposal where you were going to start at for the increase? You're starting at 0?
At 0.
Oh. Without a term, I need to have more than that, I think, to be fair. Counselor Chenoweth?
I like your idea better than I like Adam's idea. I do think it needs to start with a base number of months, though. I don't think starting at 0 is fair to anybody. So that's my first thoughts, and I'll let this go forward from there.
Adam?
Thank you, Mayor. So in my request for that, it was from reviewing other city manager contracts of lower population and higher population. Forest Grove, for instance, a smaller city has 6 months. Willamina has 3 months. Newburgh has 12 months. Grants Pass is 6 to 12 month sliding scale. Oregon City is a 6 to 9 month sliding scale. Woodburn's 9 months. Albany starts at a 6 month base and grows a month per year of service, capping at 12 months.
Okay.
Yes. Counselor Gary?
Do you have the salary schedule for those?
The average salary of those was $210 to $240.
Very good.
Counselor Tukalski?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. On the slide, we haven't defined what severance means. Are you talking about base salary plus health benefits and all the other benefits, or?
No, it's specifically to salary on the salary scale. Other benefits are called out separately.
Okay, so we're strictly talking about a salary at this point.
That's right, a lump sum payment upon termination based on the salary scale.
Thank you.
I'd like to propose 6 months with 1 month per year at a cap of 12. Counselor Cunningham.
Yeah, I think the 6 months, but I might say that after 2 years, it starts bumping up by a month every year. So I would just like to put out there, that, no, I'm sorry. Please continue. I'm sorry for interrupting.
To have this negotiation, Adam, if we just said 6, 1 month for every year, capping at 12?
For 2 years.
Well, or, okay, so let's say after 2 years.
I would like it to start from my hire date, not waiting 2 years for my hire date. Being that if you look at the norm for this city this size, it's 9 to 12 months. So, and then you look at the salary, I didn't ask for any of that to move. And the salary range of comparable cities is 210 to 240 from what I found.
So the 6 months and then 1 month each year?
Yeah,
for a-
basically Albany's program I'd be amicable to. Capping at 12, correct.
Yeah.
No.
Could you state that again, please?
So he has 6 month severance.
Immediately.
After every year, he gets 1 additional month, not to exceed 12 months.
Okay. You're amicable to that?
Yes.
So those are not terms that I have reviewed in particular. So I just want to make sure that we understand the breadth as we go through here. So it would be 6 months upon execution. So it could be 6 months next week. Next week, if something goes on and Adam is terminated without cause, that would be a lump sum payment of $100,000. And then that would increase only upon a year from that time. And again, tied to termination without cause, the up to 12 months, which is at this point $200,000, but by that point would be more.
That is concerning, the way you just said that.
The salary at the time.
Everything was great except for the first couple sentences. I don't know how comfortable I feel about it being starting on day 1 as opposed to starting on day 365.
He's been here 9 months.
Okay, that's a fair point. That makes it a little better.
To add to that, for me, it's not about me specifically. It's about what is the position and what is the market bear. And regardless of who you guys hire for this position, you're looking at a minimum of 6 to 12 months from my research of comparable contracts.
From day 1.
From day 1. You're asking a different candidate to move here from out of state or out of the area, most likely. So they're gonna want severance on day 1.
Well, and that's what Jeff Towery had. Correct?
Through his entire term.
Hmm?
Yes.
Okay. Any other concerns? No? Good with that? Now's your time.
I'm good with it.
So agrees.
6 months to 12 months, increasing by 1 month each year, starting at execution of this agreement.
Yeses.
I think it was 2 years starting from your interim manager hire date? Is that what I heard Adam argue for?
No.
Okay.
Back on that.
Sorry, I missed 2 years at all. I didn't hear that that made its way into the consensus.
It did
Did not,
It's gone.
Okay. And then, to be clear, we are working off of which date? The execution date of this agreement?
what other date would?
The interim city manager hire date where other benefits have started to accrue?
And that's where step increases, as this agreement's written, that's where step increases would happen. COLA would happen at July 1, just like other executive level staff, if there's a COLA for other executive level staff.
So I guess for,
That's what I said. So how this contract's currently written, everything transpires to that hire date. That's in the first part of the contract, that everything's tied to the original hire date of August 18th.
August or now? Now. Any other?
This, by my reading,
Is that what you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it for the record. I mean, the one comment that I have is that Adam was hired as an interim. And so it sounded like from the comment that was made that then he would be eligible for step 13 in July of this year,
No, in August on my anniversary date.
but in August of this year as opposed to the anniversary date of your official hire.
Mayor, may I ask a question?
Others may not have an issue with that, but.
Yes, Counselor Tukolsky.
Yeah, City Attorney Leichenberg, is it required to process a COLA for every employee, or is it something that you can forego based on conditions?
The city has foregone COLAs in the past. This contract is tying the city manager COLA to other executive level employees. If
I understand.
they receive one, he receives one.
I guess the only thing I'm throwing out there, and feel free to shoot it down, is I would propose there's no COLA for this 2026 year, but we go retroactive back to the interim hire date for the severance and everything.
Comments?
Mayor, could I make a comment about that?
Director Hedges?
Sure. So our, apologies, I'm here, I'm listening. The COLA is specifically built into our salary schedule. So separating a COLA out from a step increase is difficult on the administrative side.
Okay.
Now, sorry, if I may jump in and make a clarification, because I think that we've actually just come to a point where the interim city manager and I were not in accord and maybe didn't realize it. But my read of this contract is that the step increase would not occur until a year after the execution of this contract. This is tied to a city manager position, not an interim city manager position.
And I would lean into Sal's position on this and agree. I think this should be all of the things tied in this contract should be tied to the hiring of city manager, not to a previous position he happened to be filling.
That's going to go down into all of the benefits that we have identified below, all of which we have not increased, but have allowed him to carry over at whatever level they are here. You're looking to change those as well.
Well, okay, I'm confused by what you're saying. You're saying that you have some of this contract based on his interim hiring date and some of this contract based on his new hire date.
His non-salary benefits are tied particularly to his interim hire date. So vacation that he has accrued, sick days. PERS.
No, I wouldn't want those things to qualify to the new hire date. Those should roll over.
Management
Mayor-
leave, sick leave, vacation,
Just a moment, Vicki.
all of those speak to the interim city manager hire date.
Director Hedges?
I just want to note that going without a step increase this year is essentially asking Adam to go without a pay increase for a year and a half from the time he started as in the interim position.
Thank you. Yep. Comments?
I would say in general, I'm fine with this contract to this point. And with the 6-month severance and the 12, and I appreciate Director Hedges' comments about the year and a half without compensation increase.
Everybody else okay? I hear nothing, then I'm going to say that you must be okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. Finally, to complete this, the resolution itself calls out, not that we have a completed agreement attached, but that I will complete the agreement based on what we've discussed here tonight. That includes the filling in of both highlighted sections, severance and residency, and it includes a change of the cure provision from 45 to 60 days. Upon my finalizing of the contract to that effect, the mayor would then be authorized to enter into that contract with Adam.
And did you say deleting the residency on there too?
Yeah, clearing up the residency to the way that you requested, which was particularly changing it to Yamhill County.
Okay. And I would like to make sure I see the contract before my name's put on there. I don't always see all resolutions.
Be a wet signature, so I'd have you sign it.
Counselor Chenoweth?
I did miss one topic I wanted to cover, and so I'm sorry to backtrack a bit here. Sections 2.1 and 4.2 of the job description. 2.1 provides oversight and manages all activities of city departments through executive team and utilize department director recommendations to appoint and terminate all city employees except municipal court judge. Section 4.2, responsible for interview, hiring, disciplining, and terminating employees. I want to make sure as we're looking to bring on a new city manager that we're really clear about what the charter says regarding the hiring of appointed administrative officers. So to be clear, those two sections are not referring to those officers, correct?
To a certain degree, they are. I'm aware of the charter provisions, of course, that you are speaking of, but these provisions are also broader than those and include some more oversight and action with regard to employees. I'm not going to jump ahead to where I believe that you're going with your concern. yes, this applies to named executives. No, this does not supersede the charter. If the charter said something different, this would not then supersede it in any way.
Okay. But to me, it seems like it clearly is saying something different, because the power of appointing the appointed administrative officers is specifically in the hands of the council, according to the charter. And this is using the same terminology and wording to give the city manager that authority.
Can you cite the part of the charter you're talking about?
Sure. Charter 11, additional officers of the city shall be a municipal judge, city recorder, C2 city manager, city attorney, director of public works, chief of police, fire chief, treasurer, and such other officers as the council deems necessary. Each of these officers shall be appointed and may be renewed by a majority of the council.
And then you want to finish?
Well, there's more to that, but that's the key portion of this.
The council may designate any appointive officer to supervise any other appointive officer except a municipal judge in the exercise of his judicial function.
Correct. Supervise, that particular portion is giving the ability for us to hand over supervisory responsibilities to somebody other than the city manager should it be deemed necessary. But it's not about appointing, it's about supervising after they're appointed.
Insofar as that goes, like I said, these sections apply to all employees of the city and apply to some activities by the city manager, or responsibilities is a better word, of the city manager with regard to those employees that are not implicated by the scope of this section of the charter. However, insofar as this section of the employment agreement and the city manager job description were to be in conflict with the charter, they would not supersede it.
So, Adam, what would be your position as our new city manager on the hiring of the listed people mentioned in this section, and how would you handle those?
That's a dense question, Councilor Chenoweth, but I know it's an important question for yourself and something that you've brought up continuously for the last year plus. I think that there is definitely an opportunity to have more council engagement through a hiring process of directors and ET. That said, I do think it's important for me to be able to carry out your policy direction and administer the city, that I do choose my own team, but bring you guys along through the process, but not give you the outright authority to hire somebody. And I know that conflicts with your belief of...
Yeah, I think the charter's clear that the appointment process belongs in our hands.
The other thing I would say is a charter review is something that was talked about in our August goal setting, this 2025. It wasn't one of your top 5 goals, but it was up there. There's a League of Oregon Cities conference in April. I know the mayor and I are going to attend, and there's also a charter workshop in there that I intend to attend as well. So providing whoever the policy body is for the next goal setting, if that's a top 5 goal for that year, we're going to address it.
Okay.
Oh, just fine. Director Hedges, did you have something you wanted to share?
I did, thank you. The charter specifically that you mentioned, this section of the charter talks about appointment, and what the job description talks about hiring, which are 2 different processes. And those positions do come to council for appointment. So we are following the process that's outlined in the charter.
I appreciate that perspective. In no other government does appointment not include the process of hiring. If you look at the presidential level, you look at the governor level, you look at any government body that does appointment, the term appointment consistently refers to the entire process of hiring. I understand that we as a body have absolved previous processes through our voting, and I understand going forward we're absolving those processes if we vote. I get that. But at the same time, the appointment process is not just a rubber stamp at the end. It's the choosing of who we want here. And there's a reason why we have a secondary ordinance on the books that included the city manager to have the authority to be involved in that process. It's fair and it's right that the city manager be there. I welcome the comments that you made that you would include us, and I think that's important. I hope that this will become a priority to get fixed. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yep, I think he has a point that we need to address, and we've talked about it before, but you are absolutely the one to supervise employees. And we'll discuss it later, but let's make sure we don't forget it. Okay? Anything else?
That's the end of my presentation.
Any other counselor, any other comments before we move on? Okay, so we've made our changes. You're going to change the contract. I'll review it and wet sign it.
So far, we have not passed a resolution to that effect.
Okay. I have a motion to accept that resolution.
I so motion.
So I have a motion from Counselor Peralta. I have a second from
Second.
Counselor Tukalski.
Yep.
Any additional conversation, comments? Claudia?
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Counselor Geary?
Nay.
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Aye.
And Council President Peralta.
Yes.
Resolution 2026 passes by a vote of 4-1.
Hey. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's like we're all exhausted, but yeah. Okay, we're going to move on. Consider the second reading of ordinance 5173. And I am going to call on Attorney David Leitenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second reading of ordinance number 5173, an ordinance approving a comprehensive plan map amendment, docket CPA 1-25, and zone map amendment, docket ZC 2-25, for approximately 26.07 acres located at 2325 Northeast 3 Mile Lane, 160 Northeast Atlantic Street, 2305, 2245, 2225, 2215, and 2205 Northeast Cumulus Avenue, and tax lot R4422CC 01102.
Council have any questions on the second reading? Do I have a motion?
Mayor, before you do that, can we just state for the record that this ordinance did not pass unanimously to support at the March 14th meeting, requiring the second reading to be conducted at this meeting?
Thank you. Okay, so not hearing any.
I move to approve ordinance number 5173 as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? Claudia?
Chenoweth?
Nay.
Counselor Geary?
Aye.
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Nay.
Council President Peralta?
Yes.
Ordinance 5173 is adopted by a vote of 3-2.
Thank you. And thanks for reading that extra bit that I skipped. Okay, we're going to move on to advice and information items, reports from counselors on committees and board assignments and department heads. And I'm going to start with Chief Wood.
I'll try using the microphone instead of just using my big boy voice. MPD is launching a new program in the coming months. We're going to launch a bike patrol program. Program's going to be funded through grants that we've received from McMinnville Industrial Promotions and Visit McMinnville. We're going to initiate the purchase of some bicycles and equipment, and then once we have the equipment in hand, we can start planning the training program to get our officers back out in the community on bikes. We're really excited for this opportunity. Bike patrols are infinitely adaptable and can be used to address many different kinds of crime problems. They can be used for high-density events and policing areas that are difficult to reach by car. So we're very, very excited to have this program coming back to McMinnville. On the 8th of April, we'll be welcoming Officer Justin James. He will be starting his position as a police officer with MPD. Officer James is a lateral officer. He's going to be returning to MPD after a brief hiatus where he was a police officer in South Carolina, and then most recently with another Oregon law enforcement agency. We're excited for him to come back to us and get him back in an MPD uniform and on the street.
Great. I love all that. Thank you. Public Works Director, Geoff Hunsaker.
Yes, so today notwithstanding, it is spring time out there. So for most of our operations and wastewater work, we're moving into our summer window. Things like working on athletic fields, moving on to the summer permit at the plant, things like that. So all that work's ongoing. Quick update on the TSP. Our review committee reviewed proposals, and we had some very strong proposals, and we elected to move forward with interviews. So we're going to be having interviews with those consultants on Wednesday next week, April 1st, and we'll be making a selection from there and then moving forward into the contracting process, which we would bring to the city council. Also want to give some congrats to Eric Grimstead, who we hired as our wastewater services manager to replace our soon-to-be fully retired Leland Kester. Eric is officially in the role as of yesterday, so Leland's just a very experienced, very well-paid intern at this point for 3 days a week, but he's helping Eric with that transition. And then we also want to say congrats, but a farewell to our city engineer, James Lofton, who has accepted a position as the Assistant Public Works Director for the city of Corvallis. His last day will be the 1st. We're already working on a transition plan. That job is already posted on the city website, so we're looking for that, but that job can be a hard one to find a replacement for. City engineers, it can take a year or more sometimes to find a replacement. Luckily, I do have my license, so I'll be taking on a lot of the city engineer duties that are required in the code in addition to my role, but we'll get through it. And that's all I had.
Thank you. Scott Burke, Information Systems.
Sure, mostly internally, just from us. We've been reconfiguring a fair amount of storage this spring. Just it comes hand in hand with budget process, and we look what we need to process or purchase in the future, do some planning. So a lot of infrastructure work that we're always happy to say nobody noticed, but we keep pretty busy in the background sometimes. Thanks.
All you do. City Recorder, Claudia Cisneros.
Yes, as a reminder, the Oregon Government Ethics Commission Statement of Economic Interest are due April 15th, so please submit those. The Ward 3 applications are due this Friday at 5 p.m. and do want to state a correction. We previously were set to have interviews at 6 p.m. We're going to have them at 5 or 6:30. We're going to start the special meeting at 5:30 to add a ordinance on there. And that's all I have.
Thank you. City Councilor Scott Cunningham.
Yes, thank you. Historic Landmarks did meet this last week where they added on or swore in Graham Mandel as their newest committee member. That meeting then moved to a discussion of a demolition application for historic resources, so at which time I had to vacate that meeting due to it being a quasi-judicial manner. MCM-11 also held their second meeting of the year. They too are sworn a new board, actually, a new slate for their executive board, and they have one of their board members, Lisa, I'm sorry about the last name, is termed off her second time around. And so they are looking for new board members. They have a good list, but if anyone out there is interested in our local broadcast, that would be fantastic. There's a position coming available. Affordable Housing Committee did not meet because they're eagerly awaiting the approval of the CET program.
Councilor Chenoweth.
McMinnville met on Wednesday, the 11th. We agreed to the following priorities and action items for 2026. Action items are new for us. We haven't had them on our list before. The priorities are as follows: 3rd Street Improvement Project, Northeast Gateway redevelopment, McMinnville Landing infrastructure, public infrastructure, Newburgh-Dundee bypass, and housing. Action items are as following. We're going to look at research, develop, and recommend funding for a one-stop model known as a business concierge service. And then secondarily, create, research, develop, implement a unifying targeted community brand to attract new businesses and private investments to McMinnville. Next month, or next meeting, I will bring to you guys a final report on the 8212 Ron Noble grant that we did coming out of COVID. On Thursday, the 19th, I joined the Parkway, was president of the Parkway Committee. We all can see the progress that's occurring at 2A, the interchange at the end of the bypass in Newburgh. 3 lights should be going up over the next 6 months, and pretty soon you'll be able to actually make the interchange directly to Wilsonville Road. Also on Thursday the 19th, I joined the Oregon Transportation Safety Action Plan update, which focused on crash analysis. Sure, no one's surprised. There's a noticeable increase in crashes throughout this time frame due to distracted driving. That's occurred over the last 5 years. An interesting statistical fact that might catch some of you by surprise, though, is that there's been a steady uptake in accidents since late 2015. While this is not causal, it's coincidental perhaps, or correlation. The other thing that happened in late 2015 was the legalization of marijuana. If anyone if anyone in leadership is interested, I can send you a slide deck of that event, so you can take a look at the information there. On election notes, I did want to take this time to make the community aware that there is an upcoming YC Commissioners Forum being hosted by We Are MAC at the McMinnville Community Center at 11 a.m. on April 11th. Be a great opportunity to learn about all those who are on the ballot. That's it.
Councilor Peralta.
Thank you, Mayor. Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments Board of Directors met on March 17th. They elected a new chair and vice chair, Betsy Earls, who is on the board of Chemekety Community College, is the chair. Kit Johnson is the vice chair. They adopted new rates for the year for members, and we got a presentation on updates to MWAC and the transportation plan. Thanks.
Great. I was lucky enough to be able to have a tour of Homeward Bound's new facility that's under construction, though you should be fully open. They're targeting early June. I attended the McMinnville Leadership Community Discussion meeting on 3/12 with local leaders. On March 13th, I attended the Chamber Greeters, which was held by the school district, and we were presented with a program from their Business Pathways program. And there was quite a few students that presented to about 100 of us that were in attendance. I also, on the 13th, joined the Chamber for ribbon cutting. The new Tractor Supply store is open. And I also attended the Wine and Food Classic, a local fundraiser, which is always a good time. I on 3/17 was a monthly Water and Light Commission meeting. I wanted to just let everybody know that was the last commission meeting that would be held in that facility. They are in the process of moving into the temporary facility down at the end of 3rd Street, because they are remodeling, adding 14,000 square feet to the administration building, 18,500 square feet to the warehouse facility, and they should return to Marsh Lane, not March Lane, summer of 2027. On March 18th, I was able to attend with Superintendent Courtney Ferreira and Lafayette Mayor Hillary Malkinson and myself at Washer Grade School. News Register came out to do an article about our new campaign, which is We Care About Kids. And the three of us are going to attend many events to basically take care of our kids and let them know that they are wanted and that we like what they're doing. We want to encourage positivity. And it was a beautiful morning that we got to play on the playground. And a couple things for this body is if you have any proposed questions that you would like considered for the Ward 3 candidates, please have them to Claudia by the end of the day on Monday, and they will be considered for the reading. Questions will not be going out ahead of time to council or to applicants. And then also, you need to respond to Claudia. We have for the council and a few staff to go on a rec tour, an aquatic tour. You need to respond to Claudia to let her know if you're going or not. Councilor Geary.
Thank you. I'm saying yes. I am RSVP'd yes. Visit McMinnville had an all online meeting, mostly business, so I'll provide a more thorough update next time. No MURAC meeting. And so the two things I wanted to update on were more of staff kudos. Early in March, I volunteered through the school with my son Hiram's 3rd grade survival swim program, which all the 3rd graders do, the survival swim. It was kind of fun to, Adam and I went through the program together when we were putting on our clothes and jumping in the school, and now I was helping all the kids do that, and the city does that every year, and I think my favorite part was I got reassigned to a new job, and I had to get moved over and do this other swim test with these kids. And I asked new pool manager, Josh, I go, what do I do at this station? He was like, I don't know, this is all new to me too. So it's a unique program to McMinnville. They've been doing it forever, and it's really cool. So it's fun to be able to participate, and it is just a madhouse of an entire 3rd grade in the pool for an hour, just kids everywhere, and all those lifeguards head on a swivel. It was impressive feat, and a ton of kids got graduated and now are better, stronger, safer swimmers. So appreciate all the staff there. And then I also, just on the heels of James Lofton moving, I wanted to say to him and your staff, thank you very much. As maybe half of all the emails we get are traffic related. Your team was able to help. We had a concerned citizen over here in this neck of the woods ask about the citizen initiative petition through the current TSP about getting a 4-way more safe. James responded and took that in, and through review of your public works employees and police department, they analyzed traffic data and deemed that was necessary to put in a 4-way stop, and they went ahead and did it, and it's in and very effective, and James led that process. So appreciate you guys getting the work done, and especially Mr. Lofton. So thank you very much.
4-way stop?
Cowles, 4th and Cowles, over there, just one block behind the building department there, but yeah, so thank you.
Councilor Tukalski?
That's good. We needed stop signs on those ones. They're sketch. Yeah. So airport commission meets on the 31st. Otherwise, I haven't had much opportunity to do anything else. So
Okay.
That's it.
Oh, Councilor Chenoweth.
I'm sorry, I would be remiss if I didn't say I also got to tour the library this last week and had a great time going through all of the different areas of the building. It has been 5 years that I've been on council, and due to COVID and then just due to weird scheduling things, it just never worked to do it. But kudos to the staff of the library. Love the area of the library of things. I can't wait to see some more of that making its way back into our council meetings and presentations. And thank you very much to our library director for hosting me and taking me through.
City Manager Adam Garvin.
Thank you, Mayor. It's been a busy couple weeks. We had round 2 budget meetings last week, which consumed a lot of time. And between those budget meetings, I met with stable table partners one-on-one to talk about the MEVLC addendum, as well as individual items. MDA had concerns around event permits and barricades. Visit McMinnville. I shoulder tapped for the half of the money we needed for the mountain bike program, and Dan was very excited about that and helping out. Met with Patty and John at MEDP. Hosted the Yamhill County City Managers for coffee on the 13th. Attended the COG Regional City Manager Lunch on the 20th. And continuing to pursue surplus opportunities with McMinnville Water and Light with their move. They're going to have some extra furniture, so you guys will eventually be seeing some new to us outfitting of some city buildings from their move and their generosity, as well as they have some vehicles that we're going to replace some needs in our fleet. And then yesterday I had lunch with Doug Riggs, our state lobbyist, and just to recap on the legislative session, one-on-one with him, show him appreciation for the work his team does in supporting us in that, and then also talk about his appetite for any additional work with Jody's retirement. And then I also received the community center appraisal back that Heather executed with a consultant for that, and so need to review that still, but wanted to let you know that's moving along. And then after we get done with these tours, look forward to having a discussion and a recap and a public meeting, as it looks like we're going to have a quorum on those tours, so we'll have to limit any deliberations or comments during those tours. Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney David Lineberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing from the legal department tonight.
Community Development Director Heather Richards.
Thank you, Mayor. At your last city council meeting, I shared with you that we have a vacancy in our code compliance program. It's advertised right now. We're collecting applications for that. However, we had 53 open cases 2 weeks ago. I wanted to let you know we've worked through those. We've closed 37 of them. We have another 16 that we're working on now with property owners that were a little bit more complicated. So good to see that catching up. And the community has been great, very gracious in working with us and resolving these issues. So I appreciate that with everyone. Also wanted to let you know there's several quasi-judicial projects working through our system right now, either at the Historic Landmarks Committee or at the Planning Commission. Just to give you an additional warning about that, these could all come to you as an appeal process. And so I know there's a lot of community chatter right now about projects. I know there's a lot of people reaching out to city council members to share with them their thoughts about them. If you do receive those emails, please share with people that you're not in a position to be able to review them or discuss them with them, forward them to us so that we can enter them into the public record, because these could eventually come to you for decision making.
Thank you. Finance Director Katie Henry.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start with municipal court. We have had a difficult month a bit due to some family emergencies with our judge. So there have been several court days where we haven't been able to hold court last minute, where we weren't able to get a pro tem judge. So we are optimistic that he will be back on April 1st, so back with us for next month. And we have shored up some pro tem to be on call. So we're hopeful to get everything going back on track. But if you hear anything from the community, we haven't been able to adjudicate a lot of cases this month because of the judge's situation. On the finance side, we have good news and bad news. The good news is we've finally had a breakthrough in the transparency software. And this afternoon, I was able to see the first data that was integrated between our current accounting system and the transparency portal. So we're not quite there, but it's the first time we've been able to plug from one system to the other without me having to download, change everything, and re-upload. So we are really close on that, which is exciting, to be able to get that going really well for the public and for our budget. The bad news is, on the budget side, we spoke with the software company today, and we are still running into errors in the reports that they are creating. So we do not yet have the reports that we use for the budget that have everything. So for the budget book, we don't yet have a report that can do that. He was hopeful, as we said, that we do need to get these to the printers as soon as possible, since it's almost time to get them to you all so that we have time to review them. But just so you know, we don't yet have a working report to do that. So I hope to come to you with better news next time. That's all I have for you.
Thank you, Director Henry. Okay, so I didn't miss anybody. In your packet is the February 26th cash and investment report. Anybody have any questions? Okay, I will now adjourn the city council meeting at 8:43 p.m. and go into the Urban Renewal Agency meeting. All right, anybody need a break, or can we just keep going? Okay, I'd like to call the Urban Renewal Agency meeting to order at 8:43. We have a resolution to consider resolution number 2026-03, a resolution of the McMinnville Urban Renewal Board authorizing the McMinnville city manager or designee to enter into and manage a development agreement with Hoff's Homestead LLC for the bungalow lodging project at 931 Northeast First Street. I'd like to call on Heather Richards, Community Development Director, to present.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. In your role as board members of the Urban Renewal Agency, we're bringing to you tonight a recommendation from the McMinnville Urban Renewal Advisory Committee for a property assistance grant to what is called the Hoff's Homestead Project. This is outlined in resolution number 2026-03. To let you know, it is located in the Urban Renewal District, so that's one of the first qualifying criteria. It's on First Street, on the northern edge of First Street. It's a unique property. It's actually two legal lots. One lot has a historic bungalow and one lot has a garage on it. The project is both a redevelopment project and a development project. So the bungalow has been restored and new construction has occurred on the property as well. The new construction is 2 bungalows and ADU, and the garage has been remodeled as well. This is all to put together a project that is a boutique lodging and event center project in the downtown area. Shannon Quimby, who is the lead on this, is actually here tonight as well, if you have any questions for her. In terms of a project description, it is meant to be a lodging project. It will have 16 rooms associated with it, and then also the opportunity to do small events on site. It's a $1.15 million investment, redevelopment, and new construction project. To qualify, the project must be located within the Urban Renewal District. It must be new construction or substantial rehabilitation that increases assessed values in the district and creates jobs. This project does both of those. It needs to comply with federal, state, and local codes. This project is actually already underway, so it's achieved all its land use approvals as well as building permit issuance. It needs to leverage at least $4 to every $1 of urban renewal investment. This project will leverage $10 to $1 for the remaining costs of the project that they have applied for. So they still have about $550,000 remaining on the project to do. It also needs to address 2 or more of the urban renewal plan goals. The request is for $50,000. As I said, it's partially constructed. They still have approximately $550,000 remaining to be done, and their leverage is $10 for every $1. They have provided findings that shows that they meet the program criteria for economy, for encouraging a unique district identity, for historic preservation, and for development and redevelopment, so 4 of the 5. In terms of the due diligence, the products that we received and that MURAC reviewed was the application and the findings associated with that, a business plan that the developer provided to us, a construction budget, a market study, and a pro forma. MURAC looked at those, then they looked at previous awards that the agency has given and the types of projects and to which those awards were given. The Urban Renewal Agency has the ability within this program, the Property Assistance Program, to be pretty flexible on the types of terms that you come up with to participate in helping a private project move forward that you think meets the goals and objectives of the Urban Renewal District. So we in the past have done grants, we've done forgivable loans, we've done combinations of loans and grants, we've done loans where we've put off the payment, the payback for a couple of years, we've done interest-only payments for a couple of years. We've also done loans where if it's paid off early, there's a reduction in the loan amount. So it's been creative across the board based on the impact of the project itself and the needs of the project after review of the Urban Renewal Advisory Committee. So after their review, they voted to make a recommendation to you as the Urban Renewal Board to offer a 3-year forgivable loan in the amount of $50,000 plus interest. This 3-year forgivable loan would be forgiven proportionately over that 3 years based on 2 performance metrics. So finish of the construction project, so when they get their final certificate of occupancy, the recommendation to you is to forgive $25,000 at that milestone. And then after 2 years of operation, forgive the remaining $25,000 plus the interest that had been generated up to that point. The loan would be paid back if they don't meet the performance. So if there's at either of those milestones, they're not meeting the performance, they would pay back the loan and whatever interest has been generated on it. We will ask for a personal guarantee for the loan at the time of signing, and there will be a payback in full of the forgivable loan if the property sells within 5 years. Those are fairly standard terms that we've used for other projects as well. There is approximately $140,000 currently in the fiscal year 26 Property Assistance Program remaining for you to deploy if you choose to deploy it into this project. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and as I said, Shannon is here as well.
Any counselors have any questions? All right, no questions. So do I have a motion to consider Urban Renewal Agency Resolution number 2026-03?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Counselor Cunningham, a second from Counselor Tukalski. Any further discussion? Nadia?
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Counselor Geary?
Nay.
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Aye.
Council President Peralta?
Yes.
Resolution, URA Resolution number 2026-03 passes by a vote of 4-1.
Thank you. The City Council will be going into the conference room for a close to the public executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602E to conduct deliberations with persons you have designated to negotiate real property transactions. Does any counselor, thank you. Does any counselor need to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest or recuse themselves regarding these executive sessions for the record? I recuse myself because I own property next door and will not attend the executive session. I will now adjourn the Urban Renewal Agency meeting at 8:51 p.m.